WeatherTech Sports Car Championship on IMSA Radio.
Hello everybody and welcome to Watkins Glen International. An absolute delight to be here and to be looking at another fabulous piece of entertainment, excitement, well, drama, almost required, to be honest, in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. It is the WeatherTech 240 being 2 hours and 40 minutes, not 240 minutes. We're not doing a 4-hour race after the Sale in 6 hours of the Glen last weekend. Don't want to worry about that, but we haven't got the overtime sanctioned by the responsible adult and everybody here at IMSA. I would love to do a 4-hour race, but that's not how it works out this weekend. Jeremy Shaw joins me, John Hindhaugh, in the Haggerty Global Broadcast Centre. Shea Adam will be patrolling the pit and the paddock as our VP Racing Fuel Pit and Paddock reporter and keep you up to date with everything that is going on. Weather in the area, that could certainly play a part as we've been at the behest of weather in the past as well. So we'll just have to deal with that if and when it comes. The cars are just waiting to roll out and it's down in the pit lane there. I can see the cars are ready to move. Jeremy Shaw looking forward to what is going on with this afternoon, or this evening actually. Let's not forget we're starting a little bit later in the day than we did last week.
Yeah, that's right. And the conditions right now seem to be pretty good, but there's a weather warning came through on my phone just a few minutes ago. Severe weather less than 20 miles away, but that's then. This is now. Sun's not exactly shining, but the conditions are certainly good for the start, John.
Happy birthday to Kenny Arnwine, who's a new member of the IMSA technical team. Hard-working lot that they are at Tyler Norling, and making sure that we're speaking to you all around the circuit, a circuit that's comprised of 3.4 miles, 11 corners, including the ultra-quick entry to the inner loop, then the outer loop, down the chute to turn 6, torn heel of the boot. Yes, it's the classic configuration, the full 3.4 miles, and then back through another insanely quick turn 10, the left-hander. No room for error at turn 11, the final right-hander, because the wall is right there. In our Michelin Countdown to Green, we heard from all but one of our pole sitters. Let's put that right now as we hear from the man who will lead the field round to green for the IMSA WeatherTech 240 in just a few moments' time.
It's a sense of deja vu because Ricky Taylor on pole at Watkins Glen. I feel like this headline has been written before. Ricky, yesterday's qualifying session was a bit different than the one we had, 5 days before. Talk a little bit about this pole position and why you refused to get down below the 29-second mark.
I know. It's really nice to come back to Watkins Glen just a week later and continue to work on our car and improve as much as we can. It was frustrating not to break into the 29s, 2 30.0s. It's just eluded us a little bit, but I have to say the car felt better than it did last week. Although the track was a little bit damp, the track conditions are maybe not quite as quick, but the car felt better. So hopefully it stays dry. It doesn't look like it will for the race, but we're going to try to use what we learned last week to help us improve tonight.
You think a dry race will benefit the Acura more?
A wet race is just unpredictable and stressful, so I'll take a dry race any day, but if it's wet or in the right spot, visibility can be really difficult with the prototypes, how much water we pull up off the racetrack. So if it is wet, I definitely wouldn't want to be anything other than at the front. But a dry race, as we saw last week, was pretty strong for the Acuras. The 60 had a really strong day. We were kind of hanging in there, and then the Mazda jumped us at the end with a bit of strategy. So pace-wise, if it's dry, I think we have a lot of confidence. If it's wet, it's just another variable to try and work on.
Already halfway through the championship, it's kind of hard to believe we're in July now, and all of a sudden half the races are gone. It's a good position to be leading the championship, but you must not feel typically safe at this point, do you?
No, not at all. I think the Mazda's been really strong, and they haven't made any mistakes this year. They've been kind of unrelenting, and anytime we think we're going to get a little bit of a breather, like this last weekend, we thought maybe we could get a couple points on them, and they ended up gaining on us. And now it's down to such a close margin. It's only 40-something points after qualifying yesterday, and really it's the difference in a race, one position on track. So it's really close. It's become a bit of a two-horse race, although you can't really count anybody out, and how unpredictable it can be. So we're just going to keep trying to not make mistakes and getting the most out of our results and see where that puts us.
Good luck today.
Shea Adam, our VP Racing Fuel Pit and Paddock reporter, asking the question of Ricky Taylor, the pole sitter in the Konica Minolta Acura ARX 05. Obviously a bit earlier on because he's actually in the car now, and we would never ask him to be on the phone and drive at the same time. He is in the number 10, black and blue Acura, and it's an all Acura front row with Ollie Pla on the outside in the number 60. That's the black and purple Mershank Racing with Curb Agajanian number 60, as I mentioned. Then it's two Cadillacs, Kevin Magnussen in the 01 for Cadillac. Chip Ganassi Racing, not the end to the race that he wanted last week when he was taken out at turn 8 on a massive fuel save at the end of the race. Peter Durrani, 31, bright red and white, Whelen Engineering Cadillac. And on row 3, last week's winner, Harry Tinknell, had to save fuel to the end. Great strategy from Mazda Motorsports and the Multimatic team for the 55. They'll start from 5th position this week, and Harry doesn't have the slippers on this time. It will be full rich, full fuel, lead foot Tinknell at the start of the race. That car with a nice balance, although his teammate Ollie Jarvis saying they are thinking championship and they need to make sure they get points and try and stay in touch with the championship leaders, the Konica Minolta Acura, who do start on pole position. 6th position in the final of the DPI, the Mustang sampling JDC Miller Motorsports Cadillac DPI. That's the number 5 car, the dark grey and gold machine. In LMP2, Ben Keating for PR1 Matheson Motorsports stole away the pole position from Stephen Thomas in Win Autosport on the last lap of qualifying. John Ferrano in 3rd. In P3, a brilliant performance from Matteo Arena for Performance Tech Motorsports, the number 38. John Bennett in 2nd. Jared Andretti for Andretti Autosport in 3rd. Scar Robinson for Riley in 4th, ahead of his teammate Jim Cox in 5th. In GT Le Mans, Jordan Taylor made it 2 pole positions for the Taylor family in the number 3 Corvette, ahead of his teammate Nick Tandy in the number 4, and Cooper McNeil with a rebuilt WeatherTech racing car after the fire last weekend in 3rd. And in GTD, it will be Paul Miller Racing in Madison Snow in the Huracan number 1 that starts ahead of the Vassar Sullivan Lexus number 12 of Frank Montecalvo. Richard Highstand for Carbon with Peregrine Racing in the Audi R8 LMS GT3, and Till Bechtelsheimer on the outside of the front row, the best ever qualifying for Gradient Racing. Our Porsche keys to the race, very quickly, Jeremy. Patience here, but you can't have too much patience because it's only 2 hours and 40 minutes.
Yeah, patience. You could afford to be patient last week, perhaps, when you had 6 hours to make up for any problems that you had previously during the weekend, i.e. the Mazda, which started last. But today, it's going to be a lot more difficult to make up those positions. So I think you really got to charge from the start. There's no time to finish that. No mistakes. You can't recover in a 2 hour 40 minute race, Jeremy, if you have to come and do a drive-through. Yeah, that's absolutely the case here, because when you're long pit stop, there were eight or nine pit stops last time around, plenty of time to cause some strategies or make something happen. Now, if you make a mistake, as competitive as each of these classes are, it's going to be awfully difficult to make up for that.
And green flag pit stops, you have to execute there as well. Those are our Porsche keys to race. We'll check in with them throughout the race. We'll also have our Mazda in-race update to keep you abreast of what is going on. 2 hours and 40 minutes. That's the WeatherTech 240 at the Glen. The safety car lights are off and the Cadillac will pull into the pit lane, leaving the grid under the control of Ricky Taylor for Konica Minolta, and the Acuras have the front row, waiting for the green flag. It's in the air and waving, and we are racing again, twice in the space of a week. At Watkins Glen International, Pipo Derani already looking down the inside, but is blocked by Kevin Magnussen, who goes for second place, and there's a touch, and round goes Ollie Pla. That was almost inevitable, wasn't it, at the start? All these chargers desperate to get best track position, and Ricky Taylor takes off as if he's been shot from a cannon. The two Corvettes lead down to turn one, and in GT Daytona, it's the Vasser Sullivan Lexus of Frank Montecalvo who comes through to take the lead as they got caught up behind the WeatherTech Porsche. Not a great start from Cooper McNeil. So Madison Snow shuffled back in the pole sitting Paul Miller racing car. Ollie Pla is facing the right direction. I'm sure race control will be looking at that first corner incident, but you do get a little more leeway at the start of the race when everyone is jockeying for position. The two Corvettes are heading for the hills in LMP2. Ben Keating's just about held on to his pole position. LMP3, Matteo Lorena is ahead for Performance Tech Motorsport, but what a start for the championship leaders. Ricky Taylor with a huge lead, Jeremy Shaw, at the start of the race.
He has gone absolutely checked out, but what a brilliant start from Harry Tincknell. He goes from a fifth on the grid to second on the first lap, taking advantage of that miscue down at the first corner. And in years past here, at turn one, there's a big runoff area there, but the drivers have been told very, very clearly not to use it. So you have to keep to within the track bounds. That's what Olivier Pla was trying to do there. As Magnussen came down the inside, there was a bit of contact at the exit, but as you can see from there, Magnussen pushed Pla right out to that exit, onto the exit curb. I think Magnussen is going to be lucky to get away without a penalty. Having a look on the onboard, he's halfway alongside at the apex, but I think he's going to be lucky to get away with that one.
The rule is you've got to give room a car's width, and you could argue that Pla didn't give a car's width to the inside. That could go either way. That could go either way, Jeremy. That could be a call on either car, or it could be determined as a race incident.
True, fair comment. Certainly, I think Magnussen was trying to get out of it. I think he realised
I agree.
I was trying to get out, but Pla was already turned into the corner, committed into the corner, so he's got some work to do. Back in GTD, by the way, you talked about the Madison Snow, the pole sitter for back. I think it was his first pole position. Don't know why I said that. It was his fourth pole position in this championship, but not a good start for Madison. He's got some work to do. Richard Highstand moved up very nicely there into the second position in the Carvana Audi behind the Frankie Montecalvo Lexus.
Yeah, good start from Frankie Montecalvo. Shea Adam is watching the race control and listening to the race control channel, and there's a few things to look at there, including the Magnussen and Pla incident and the start itself. Shea, it's standard operational procedure to review the start, but what are you hearing?
Both starts will be under reviews. There is question about the LMP3 pole sitter. Was he in the proper column for the start of that race? And there is further questions for the GTD field. There are 3 GTLM cars, which means that the GTDs should have staggered into place behind, but apparently not everybody followed suit. So first will be investigated the 01 and the 60 contact, then will be both of the starts.
As Jeremy said, a cracking start for the Idemitsu Mazda Motorsport, Mazda DPI, the Multimatic team. A little bit disappointed, I think, that not to be further up the grid. They knew that pole position, or at least track position here, was important. Well, they've got that now, despite qualifying on the inside of row 3. Now in second place, albeit a second and a half, but a second and a half, I think they'd have taken that if you'd said Jeremy Shaw to Harry Tincknell, Ollie Jarvis, Lena Gade or Larry Holt, you'll be a second and a half away from Ricky Taylor at the end of the second lap, and you'll be sitting in second position. I think they'd have snatched your arm off for that.
the end of the first lap, yeah, they absolutely would. Yeah, you know, the big bite mark on your hand if you'd offered that one forward. Yeah, brilliant start though, just in the right place at the right time, takes full advantage. You know, it was a completely different story one last week or just a few days ago when Strategy got into the front. That was just a great move and an opportunistic manoeuvre there from Harry Tincknell, taking advantage of those other guys hustling amongst themselves. And now on lap 3, it's Tincknell who sets the fastest lap of the race as he tries to track down the race leader, Ricky Taylor.
At IMSA Radio, if you'd like to get in touch with us, we will have Michelin post-race tech at the end of the race and discuss a few points of interest, what's been going on. If you'd like to make some contribution to the original listener and viewer led show, you control the editorial there, hashtag Michelin PRT at IMSA Radio on Twitter. No further incidents, no further action rather. NFA, a racing incident. There's the 01 and the 60. Meantime, there is a pit lane caller, which means we can hear from our VP Racing Fuels pit reporter, Shea Adams.
It's Robbie Foley in the 96 Turner Motorsport BMW came down the pit lane. They took the hood off and they were looking in the driver's side underneath the hood. Foley is rolling once again. The brake lights are on. The car that won not even a week ago behind the wall already. They come into this race third in the sprint championship, just 10 points behind second place. Second place is still on track. Foley is not.
So the call on that early contact is that it was a racing incident, or at least there needs to be no interjection and action from race control. Tincknell, another fastest lap of the race. He's still about a second away from Ricky Taylor. These are the cars, Jeremy Shaw, battling at just over the halfway stage in the championship for the WeatherTech Sports Car Championship 2021.
Yeah, it's been a tremendous championship so far and will continue to be so through the season. The Mazda definitely has been the most consistent performer, I think, through this championship so far. It was the only car to score podium finishes each of the first 3 races of the season. Then in Detroit, they certainly had the pace for a top 3, but got muscled down to 4th at the end and then bounced back with that tremendous victory 1 week ago. So in terms of the championship, a 32-point deficit coming into this race, and in fact much of that was as a result of the fact that Ricky Taylor and Philip Albuquerque got the pole position yesterday, and the Mazda started back in the 5th position, so that was a 9-point swing that took place yesterday in qualifying with this new point scoring system for 2021.
A new leader in LMP3, Jared Andretti, has got by the Performance Tech Motorsport Ligier, and now the 36 Andretti Autosport car is leading that category. Good start from Gar Robinson, 3rd position for the Riley Motorsport, number 74 in the GT Le Mans. It's still Taylor ahead of Tandy, 3 from 4 in the 2 Corvettes. And in GTD, Frank Montecalvo has just put the fastest lap of the GTD race in at a 47.2 for Vassar Sullivan and that Lexus high stand for Audi, then the Lamborghini number 1 of Madison Snow, then Acura, then Aston Martin, Vantage, Harter Racing Team, Roman De Angelis starting that car. Top 5 cars within not very much time at all, and all different manufacturers, exactly as we like it in GT Daytona. With dark clouds gathering and with traffic now in play, Porsche keys the race. Traffic, patience, be patient but be decisive. There's not time to mess about. The Mazda in traffic at the moment, smallest engine. It's all about momentum for that little 2-litre inline 4-cylinder turbocharged engine as they try to chase down the bigger engined Acura ahead. Super on the brakes for Harry Tincknell down at turn 8, and now there's nothing between 1st and 2nd, and Taylor and Tincknell at this one, Jeremy. This could be an absolute cracker. Still 2.5 hours to go.
Yeah, this is building up quite nicely. Look at the clouds that are in the vicinity, but it's dry now, and the drivers will be focusing forward. They're taking advantage of the dry weather conditions to turn some pretty quick lap times around here. The fastest lap set by Harry Tincknell, 1:31.3. Compare that to last week, by the way. The fastest lap of the race last Sunday was a 31.5 actually by Renger van der Zande. So already gone quicker than that. Harry Tincknell. And he is the next fastest car would be the race leader, Ricky Taylor. His best lap so far, 1:31.6.
Bad news for Turner. The 96 BMW has gone behind the wall. Shares on it. We'll get a VP Racing Fuel update as soon as we can. Into the LMP3 traffic, into the GT Le Mans traffic. The blue and gloss black Konica Minolta Acura, with Harry Tincknell getting a really good run into turn 7. The tour of the boot, as he is now on the tail as they crest the rise of the leader. Goes to the right-hand side, but that's just a bit of a fake. Down into turn 8, there's going to be more traffic in a moment, but Tincknell's not hanging about here, as the number 60, the other Acura that was on the front row, fighting back. Ollie Pla, 22.5 seconds down on the leader. The review of the start has come through from race control. Shea Adam.
The Performance Tech LMP3 machine lined up on the wrong side. Doesn't matter, they were on the pole. You have to line up in the right spot. It's a drive-through penalty from Matteo Urena, and he has just served that.
Well, he'd already lost the lead to Jared Andretti. That was on sheer pace. Andretti coming through in the number 36 Ligier. Just Ligier's in that category, although there are other LMP3s. Indeed, we've had some of the other chassis manufacturers here earlier on today in the prototype challenge. It's a long fight back now for Ollie Pla, and the Frenchman will, well, I expect to see him setting some decent times, Jeremy, once he gets clear of the traffic, because if he wasn't, what's the word I'm looking for, motivated enough beforehand, he'll really want to be going for it now to catch up to the back of the DPI field.
Absolutely right, John. I mean, last week, that number 60 car, the Meyer Shank Acura, that was kind of the favourite for the win. It led more laps than anybody else. Dane Cameron was disappointed after his qualifying performance. He felt he could have been or should have been on pole position. They were in good shape to win the race. It's just that final pit stop where the number 55 Mazda was just a little bit quicker. They changed one tyre to the 2 of the Acura. That was enough to make the difference. They had to do the second place then. Yesterday in qualifying, Ollie Pla qualified the car rather than Dane Cameron. He made a mistake on his best lap as well.
Yes.
He had to start second, but now, as you say, he's going to have to try and work his way back through the pack.
Porsche keys the race. It is only a 2-hour 40-minute race, so you've got to execute no mistakes. That was an unfortunate incident rather than a mistake for the Meyer Shank driver. Ollie Pla, though, super quick, driving as well as he ever has. He's fast in everything he has been in, and he will be charging back as much as he can. Probably won't have changed their strategy for the moment at least. They're still only 23 seconds down on the leaders, call it 24. We'll keep an eye on that and see if Ollie is able to make some ground back, or whether perhaps there's a little bit of a performance deficit with that side-to-side contact with Kevin Magnussen in the 01 Cadillac Chip Ganassi Racing. That's the chalk-coloured car, that 01. Already a winner this year, Magnussen, with Renger van der Zande, pole position and the win at Belle Isle last month, as it is now. And Chip Ganassi Racing back on the top step of the box in IMSA and sports car racing. Big changes for Chip and his organisation. The NASCAR part of the business being moved on. What does that mean for the rest of the business? Well, nothing at all. They're individual business units, but it does mean that I suppose they can concentrate on the NTT IndyCar Championship and here in the WeatherTech Sports Car Championship in a time where there are changes aplenty, with new manufacturers and current manufacturers committing to the new DPI hybrid regulations known as LMDH globally. I'm sure Chip will be hoping to snag a manufacturer programme to take through into 2023 and beyond. Coming down to 2 hours and 25 minutes to go. Monte Calvo leads for Vasser Sullivan in the number 12. That's the Lexus, the bright yellow car. Then the Carbon Audi, dark grey and green 39. Then Madison Snow in the red, white and black number 1 Lamborghini for Paul Miller Racing, just going across the line now. In LMP3, your leader is Jarrett Andretti, who's got 13 seconds on Gar Robinson, who's now up the second, of course, after that penalty for Matteo Lacharena. And in LMP2, Ben Keating, PR1 Matheson Motorsport, in the Wins car, leading by 25 seconds from Stephen Thomas and Win Autosport. And at the top of the field, Ricky Taylor leads by just half a second now, with Harry Tincknell staring at the back of that Konica Minolta Acura and closing in on them. Kevin Magnussen now, who's found a bit of pace, Jeremy, and he's now just about another second further back.
Yeah, Magnussen having found a way past Pipo Derani 4 or 5 laps into the race, in third place now, Magnussen. Was that a replay of what happened, or was that happening right now? Certainly very, very close together as they cross the start.
That's live, Jeremy. They're going up the hill now.
Yeah, that's live. Third and fourth there. So super battle going on there, but they have changed positions from where they were at the end of the at the end of the first lap. But there seems to be nothing to choose between those two.
Shea Adam has got the answer on the 96 Turner BMW with this VP Racing Fuel Pit report.
Steering wheel was feeling really heavy to Robbie Foley, and it wasn't just because he was tired, having gotten out of another Turner Motorsport BMW in another race. Power steering issues for that car. They are trying to fix it because they need the points for the Sprint Championship, as I mentioned a little bit earlier. They're not happy finishing this race in P12. They want to try and salvage something.
It's a good point as well, of course. The GT Daytonas, the GT3s here. This race is only point scoring for the Sprint Championship. We have the full championship. We have the Michelin Endurance Cup, which, guess what, are the long races. So that's the Rolex 24, the Mobil 1 12 Hours of Sebring, the Sailing 6 Hours last weekend here at the Glen, and then of course Motul Petit Le Mans at the end of the season. And there's a Sprint Championship as well, a shorter season for teams to either stick another car in, or maybe they have a driver that doesn't want to do or commit to the full season. It's just a selection of the shorter races. This is one of those, and it is purely point scoring in GT Daytona for that Sprint Championship. Pipo Derani just dropped back for a moment from Kevin Magnussen. Those two were disputing third place pretty fundamentally a few moments ago. You're listening to IMSA Radio and IMSA TV live from the Hagerty Global Broadcast Centre. Action this Friday, this Fast Friday, from Watkins Glen International and the WeatherTech 240 at the Glen. Leaders now in traffic again, going past the Win Autosport number 11 cars. They come through the toe of the boot. That at the moment being driven by Stephen Thomas, second place in LMP2. Now through the hill, turn 8. Coming up, more cars to lap. Look like one of the GTD Acuras that they're coming up to next as they commit left-handed to turn 10, then right-handed to 11. Magnussen trying to get on terms with them at the moment. Down the front straight towards turn 1. Tricky downhill braking. You don't have to brake a lot, but it's still difficult. Off the brakes early, get the car settled, and then hard on the throttle. A little 4-cylinder engine singing away behind Harry Tincknell at the moment. And more traffic in the wrong place for the leader. That really costs some momentum. Tincknell immediately goes to the left-hand side. That's going to be the long way around down the back straight as into the pit lane comes the Whelen Engineering, number 31. This is very late. I wonder if they've got tyre damage here. Shea Adam is watching this for us.
It's fuel and tires only, no driver change. Pipo Derani staying aboard. The minimum drive time, by the way, for the pro categories is 10 minutes only. So Pipo's day is not yet done, even though it could have been. Waiting on fuel at this point, and Pipo is sent out. But as you say, 20 minutes into the race, it's a bit too soon.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain they must be looking at a tyre issue, unless they're trying to do something really weird. We started with 2 hours and 40 on the clock, Jeremy, and in terms of the DPIs, how does that split up for DPI pit stops?
Well, we're around about 40 minutes, a little bit less around here. This is a fast racetrack that uses a lot of throttle. At least normally it is, although last week we saw them stretching out their fuel in that final stint when they absolutely had to. But I can't see that being a scheduled stop for the number 31 car at that stage. They were, you talked about the previous lap, just dropped it back a little bit from the 0-1 car. I wonder whether there was a little bit of contact between those two. Big surprise for me is that Olivier Pla really isn't making up any ground on the race leaders.
He's losing,
indeed he is. And we saw broke away from Harry Tincknell trying to make a move for the lead on Ricky Taylor. That clearly was rebuffed, and Ricky Taylor now has actually his biggest lead of the race as a complete lap 13.
Yeah, 1.5 seconds at the front of the field. Looked like a challenge going into the inner loop, and that's the problem. You make a challenge, you drop back, and then you've got a plan and scheme. Tincknell still has the fastest lap of the race. A few laps ago now, 1:31.3. They're lapping in the 35s, going through traffic at the moment. And the point that Jeremy makes about Ollie Pla, well, he has made up a position, of course, because Pipo Derani has stopped. But I remember seeing he was 23.8 seconds behind the leader. He's now 31 seconds behind the leader, although his pace is picking up on this lap and his fastest first sector of the race. But clearly, the Mershank Racing with Curve Agajanian and Acura, the number 60, the purple and black car, not quite to Ollie Pla's liking at the moment. In GT Daytona, check that, in GT Le Mans, there's been a swap around and Nick Tandy has gone through. Looks like that was a planned swap, as the number 4 car steered over to the far side of the road and Jordan Taylor allowed Nick Tandy to go through. They're about a second apart. Nick Tandy, very disappointed, had a broken suspension part last week, an anti-roll bar on that car, and that stopped him taking the victory last week. Shea Adam has a Corvette update and some more pit stop news.
Jordan is actually reporting a bit of instability at the rear of the number 3 Corvette. So that could have been what the issue was between the two cars. Maybe Jordan's a little less comfortable with the car than Nick is right now. So they're allowing Nick to go and have fun. Into the pits, we have this 79 Porsche for WeatherTech Racing. Cooper McNeil getting out of the car. Matty Campbell taking over. And it's fuel and tires for Loic Duval. So that is now 2 Cadillacs that we've had this time of the Mustang sampling variety into the pit lane. And quite a bit earlier than we were expecting to see any DPI stops.
Yeah, that Corvette update is a bit of a worry. That's the same sort of instability that Nick Tandy had last week, which, as I say, was finally diagnosed as a broken anti-roll bar, sway bar at the back of that car. Nick managed to bring it home, but couldn't hold on to a podium position when he looked pretty dominant in the front of the field until the final restart. Pipo Derani setting decent times, still not as quick as the guys ahead. 32.0 last time around for Ricky Taylor, 31.8 for the chasing Harry Tincknell. That gap at the front of the field though, Jeremy, now nearly 2 seconds, and Kevin Magnussen is becoming a thorn in the side of Harry Tincknell. He's less than half a second back now, and that means Tincknell has to think what's going on behind as well as trying to close down on the leader.
Yeah, so kind of a double whammy there. He lost ground. I'd love to know what happened up at the inner loop when they got up there, because it was pretty much side by side going into that corner. It looked like when we switched the onboard to go to that pit stop for the number 31 car, but when they next time we saw them, they were a second and a half apart. And as you say now, Harry Tincknell's got to worry probably more about what's happening behind, because he knows how forceful Kevin Magnussen can be, because he saw it at the first corner of the race.
Jeremy Shaw, who's alongside me, John Hindhaugh in the Hagerty Global Broadcast Centre. Shea Adam keeping us up to date with what's going on in the pit and paddock as the leader puts a lap on Ben Keating, who's leading in LMP2, 7th position overall. That's the pace that's been set at the front of the field. Remember our Porsche keys to the race. This is only 2 hours and 40 minutes. This is not the big race of last week. If you've got the pace, you've got to find it early and you've got to use it early. Track position absolutely key here this weekend, as Magnussen has target acquired on the mostly white Mazda ahead of him. The top three now virtually equidistant. Leader just a little bit further away. Just over a second and a half between Taylor and Tincknell, the Cunningham and Alder Acura and the Mazda, and then Kevin Magnussen 3/4 of a second further back. The three manufacturers, Jeremy, in the top three, just how we like it.
Indeed so, you're absolutely right, and all seem to be very, very closely matched as well. Just noticed in LMP2, John Farano has moved up ahead of Stephen Thomas into second place for Tower Motorsport, and Stephen really does seem to be struggling in the early stages of this race. Not quite sure why, because he had a brilliant performance last week, as we heard from Ben Keating how impressed he was with Stephen Thomas's pole position, and then ran away in the early stages. This time, completely, the boot is on the other foot, and Ben Keating is romping away in the lead. He now leads by 40 seconds over John Farano, with Stephen Thomas slipping back in third. Just talked about the two GT LM cars. They've changed places several times already in this race.
Fairly quiet in the pit lane at the moment. Problems early on for the BMW of Turner Motorsport. A power steering issue which has been worked on in the paddock at the moment. They are desperate for the Sprint Cup points, so they'll want to get that car back out. This is impressive running from Ricky Taylor. Last time around a 32 flat, 31.7 last time for Harry Tincknell, but that gap just refuses to come down much below a second. It's hovering around about a second, 1.1, 1.2. A little bit of clear air for the leader now through turn one, and the next car that he will have to contend with is already on the back straight, and that is the number 91. So a different category of car, so he'll close down that gap to Jim Cox in the Riley Motorsports Ligier pretty quickly, but he's got a decent amount of gap between himself and Harry Tincknell in second place, just on a second now as they come through more traffic. Corvette in front of him now as well. Onto the start-finish straight.
So these cars being lapped for the second time by the race leaders, and Ricky Taylor, it's just over a second from first to second, and Magnussen hanging right there in third position. This is a great battle at the front of the field as they work their way through the traffic. It's a very physical track here at Watkins Glen, and it's mentally demanding as well, with all the traffic that the leaders have to deal with. And of course, for the other way around as well, when you're being lapped, it's just as taxing for you mentally as well.
I tell you what, if we get through this without a splash of rain, or perhaps something even more, looking out over to the far side of the track, down towards the toe of the boot, so basically to our right from Our usual vantage point at the top of the grandstand, which overlooks the start-finish line, looking into the pits. Well, right from there, it looks very, very black indeed. Shea Adam has an update in a VP Racing Fuel Pit paddock report. Shea, what do you got?
The LMP3 machine of Dawson Racing. It's Theodore Olsen, who was super impressive last time in the 6 hours. Well, the car is currently sitting last in class and 2 laps down. They came into the pit lane a few minutes ago, found 2 faulty fuel injectors on the left-hand side, which was something that they thought they could drive around. Well, they can't. It's coming back in. They're going to go to the garage, change those fuel injectors, and then try and get back out before the end of this race. Every lap is learning for the Transformer-sponsored team.
Great to have Ian and the rest of his team with us in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship paddock here at Watkins Glen. And they've been busy, Jeremy. It's really been a baptism of fire in the last week or 10 days.
Yeah, it has. As Shea was saying, Theodore Olsen in particular had a great run last weekend, but they've had problems with the car this week. They changed the engine actually after qualifying. And clearly, whatever that problem is in that car is persisting, and now it's going to lose quite a bit of time. But it's a very steep learning curve for that team. Great to see the Dawson's father and son back in this championship after a fairly lengthy absence. They've been working super hard on that Hasbro and Transformers 3 Plus team to get it back out here. So they're here for the long term and just learning as they go. Battle back on again for the leader. 2 leaders pretty much nose to tail.
Yeah, very close indeed. Very close indeed. As they went across the line last time around, it was under half a second. And here they come again. Go ahead, Jeremy.
I just don't understand what's wrong with Ollie Pla. I mean, maybe the car was damaged in that spin up the first corner, perhaps, because he's just not able to turn anything close to the laps of the guys ahead of him, as he's just gone green in sector 1 on this lap.
Yeah,
he's now 38 seconds behind the leader.
Yeah, exactly. So he's dropped another 6 or 7 seconds. Behind him, of course, we've got Peter Durrani, who's stopped, and Loic Duval, who's stopped. Durrani's just done a 31.5. That was the fastest lap of the last time around by some margin. Ian McCarthy at IMSA Radio, he says, the Turner BMW, would no power steering make the GT car undrivable, or is it that the issues could be affecting steering in a dangerous way? I think probably both, because you've got a steering rack there, Ian, that is meant to be powered. Therefore, it's a very short rack, and by that I mean that you don't have to put a lot of steering lock, a lot of degrees into it to turn the front wheels, and that's fine when you've got the power assistance. When you haven't, and you've got that short or that quicker rack as it's called, it's almost impossible to turn it. And these cars run big cambers on the front, they've got big sticky Michelin tyres, and they've got downforce. So it would be very difficult indeed to turn the wheel. Not impossible. The problem comes if you have to make an adjustment if the car's sliding, which they tend to be quite a lot. I have a feeling it wouldn't have done the upper body strength of any of the drivers in their upper arms and across their chest. It would have been a heck of a workout for them. They rightly have taken that car behind the wall. He says, I assume, says Ian, there's still no stupid questions. No stupid questions at all, Ian. Good question, and hopefully that's giving you a little insight. Different ways of doing power steering nowadays, some electric, some still hydraulic, but power steering on these race cars, very important indeed, because they were designed to have it, and when it's not there, man, do you notice it's not there. Still 2 hours and 7 minutes to go. The lead is about 7 car lengths between Ricky Taylor and the Acura DPI for Konica Minolta. Wayne Taylor Racing down through turn number 6 at the moment. Meantime, trying to chase them down, Kevin Magnussen has dropped to almost 4 seconds, and 1 or 2 little spots of rain at the far side of the circuit from where I said the weather was coming. So the toe of the boot, the outer loop, that sort of area. Turns 5, 6 and 7. Nothing at the moment that is too worrying. And Shea Adam, there's been an incident out on the circuit at turn 1 that is being investigated?
Apparently, the 54 Core Autosport LMP3 machine and Gar Robinson in the 74 Riley Technology LMP3 machine had it coming together on the track. Both spun, apparently. Both drivers are being quiet on the radio in responsibility, but it is being investigated by race control, so we'll have to wait and see what they deem as having happened.
Earlier today, Jeremy, in terms of the weather, in the IMSA Prototype Challenge race, the weather came from that area, the 7 corner, the toe of the boot, and it actually never got much further than that, to be honest.
It was absolutely incredible. I mean, for maybe 200, 250 yards from the tip of the toe of the boot, back up the racetrack, it was sopping wet. The rest of the track was completely dry. It was bizarre. Really, really strange. I mean, we talk about the kind of the microclimates here in the Finger Lakes region. In some ways, it's quite similar to the Ardennes region, Ardennes Forest in Belgium, Spa-Francorchamps, or even the Nürburgring, where frequently you can have raining on one part of the track but not on the other. But to that extent, this morning was absolutely amazing. Just that one little section, literally the tip of the toe, which caught out several drivers. Of course, they were lucky not to hit anything too hard. But boy, it was a scary moment. It would have been a very, very scary moment when they arrived down there. The rest of the track's dry, and it was just that one portion of the track, and it stayed that way. It's just bizarre.
Watkins Glen doing its best Le Mans impression as well. It happens at the Circuit de la Sarthe as well. Coming down to 2 hours to go. No pit stops for the top 4 cars. And in fact, as I say that, here comes K-Mag into the pit lane for Cadillac Chip Ganassi Racing. 3rd position car, Shea Adam, is in the pit lane.
And I would be shocked if Kevin Magnussen is allowed to stay in the 01 Cadillac Chip Ganassi Racing machine, because his co-driver Renger van de Zande simply loves this place, but no driver change yet. That is a surprise. Renger looks forward to racing at the Glen pretty much all year. They did this race, the 6-hour, just the 2 drivers. They were only one of 2 cars in the DPI field, pretty much because Renger likes the seat time around here. It is such a fun track. They're cleaning out the air intake on the left-hand side after the tire change is done. That was 4 new sticker Michelin tires going on that car, just waiting on fuel. Car creeped forward a tiny little bit while the fuel probe is still attached, but I think that was more Kevin flexing his foot on the brake pedal. We'll have to wait and see if that's a penalty, because that part of the pit lane is not that sloped downhill, not as much as the first pit box per se.
I think what they were doing on the left-hand side here was straightening one of the side strakes after that side-by-side contact. There was a bit of Michelin tyre rub evident there, and I think they were just making sure there was no damage behind that, as well as taking out any rubber debris that might have been there. And here comes the leader and the 2nd place car, and Tincknell closes right up on Ricky Taylor as they head into the pit lane. Now Magnussen with a good outlap here might have been able to get the performance advantage from his Michelin tyres. Where did he drop back in? Oh, he dropped right back into traffic, so he hasn't had a good outlap. But here are 1st and 2nd. Here's the first round in the battle of the pit stops at the Watkins Glen 240, the WeatherTech 240. Shea Adam.
Fuel and tires for both cars, but it is a driver change for the 10 Konica Minolta Acura. This is Philippe Albuquerque getting aboard, whereas the Mazda doing their tire change. The car coming off the air jack. Oh, they're going to take a windshield tear off for Harry as well. Car is off the air jack now. Driver change still going on for Albuquerque. Looks like a little bit of issue trying to get the belts done in that car, but the fuel probe is still attached, so no time lost as of yet. Driver changes, puts his hand up, still waiting. There we go. Car is cleared to leave. Cars are both cleared to leave. They're going to leave pretty much as close as they came in. A little bit of breathing room for Albuquerque, but Tinks is already hot and ready to go for this track.
Ollie Pla into the pit lane in the number 60 after that enforced spin contact at the first corner on the first lap. Pla already out of the car. He had cycled up to 3rd position, but of course that was not a true representation. The tyres done very quickly there by the Michael Shank Racing team. Now, did they do both sides there, Shea? Did they just do left-hand sides?
I believe they did both sides. I'll text McCleary to get a better response on that. But they did do the driver change. Dan Cameron into that car, as you rightly say. I'm a bit mystified because into the pit lane also was Ben Keating, and we are still a minute short of minimum drive time having been elapsed. So that's Ben going out for another stint at Watkins Glen.
Pipo Derani all over the back of the number 10 cars. They come through the Tour of the Boot. Derani, remember, stopped earlier on, so he's not on the same pit stop strategy. Almost a side-by-side contact in the braking area for turning in the heel of the boot and goes through. So Pipo Derani goes through, not on the same pit stop strategy, remember. He came in much earlier on, but clearly, Jeremy, whatever the reason was for that early stop, and we didn't think that was strategic in itself, but they know, being off kilter now, that Pipo's got the opportunity to pull away here, and he's tried to do that, and in fact has done that. As the number 10 car, the Koenigsegg Minolta Acura, is still warming its new Michelin tyres.
Yeah, so you'll be very interested to see how this pans out. Generally speaking, when you run longer than another car, because there's no tyre warmers in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship, it always takes at least a half of that to get the new tyres up to optimal working temperatures. So generally the overcut, as they would term it in Formula One, is more powerful than the undercut coming in before the other car in this championship than some other series. But I'm just looking at that pit stop for the number 52 that Seamus talking about. They haven't yet served their minimum driver time, and I wonder whether I would suggest that perhaps John Farano and Stephen Thomas, they're trying to extend their stint so they can get to the 40-minute mark in this race before they needed fuel. The pace was Ben Keating was running. He needed fuel, so he had to come in the pits before the 40 minutes had been served. But now we are more than 40 minutes into the race, and I would be surprised. I think John Farano and Stephen Thomas will be in this time around.
But Jeremy, the minimum drive time is 45 minutes, and John Farano is in the pit lane now. That's not enough time for him to have done his portion of the race. So if any of them is going to make that work, it's going to be Stephen Thomas. But here's the kicker. There's rain on the cameras. The rain is almost here.
How bad will it be? That's the question. And who gets the advantage? Anybody who hasn't stopped or is on maybe a different strategy, like Pipo Derani, who leads the motor race. He's been out, he's on his 15th lap out of the pits. Remember, came in after just 13 laps early on. We speculated there might have been a tyre issue or something else. The battle for second is really heating up again. This was the battle for the lead before their first scheduled pit stops, and it's still the Koenigsegg Minolta Acura, but this time it's Philippe Albuquerque who's doing battle with Harry Tincknell at the sharp end of the field. That might become the battle for the lead in about 7 or 8 laps time when Pipo Derani comes back to pit lane for his next scheduled service. Remember our Porsche keys to the race: how you deal with your green flag pit stops and how efficient you are is going to be very important indeed. Spin at turn 1 for John Bennett in the number 54 Core Autosport Ligier. That's the tangerine white and black number 54 car, just going to the top of the hill now. He was working his way through traffic and just lost it trying to go around the outside, the right-hand side of turn 1, round the Allegra Motorsport car. I think that was the GT3 machine with Michael de Quesada behind the wheel. Yes, it was. So, Jeremy, 1 or 2 teams, I'll say this, playing fast and loose with the driver times at the moment, which is all right because they will have to make another pit stop, so it just probably means that they're going to have to put their opening driver back in again for some lap times at the end, for some drive times at the end.
What, for DP?
For the LMP3, for the LMP3 guys, yeah.
No, the B3 cars haven't yet been in. They haven't yet reach their pit stop window. They can go a little bit
sorry,
further yet before they
LMP2.
need
My
to
apologies.
come in.
Yes,
Yeah, but for P2, well, yeah. I mean, Stephen Thomas has not yet come in. It's 43 minutes and 48 seconds have elapsed. If he could do one more lap, he should be able to stay out there. But the bad news is he's already, even though Ben Keating has made a pit stop, he's still ahead of Stephen Thomas. But if Stephen Thomas can hand over to Tristan Nunez, then Nunez is probably going to be quite a bit quicker than Ben. This is going to be really, really interesting.
Well, that was a heck of a first stint by Ben, and well done for getting the guys at PR1 Matheson Motorsports to turn that car around very quickly indeed. And by the way, if you want a very graphic illustration of hot tyres versus tyres just coming out of the pits, Pipo Derani, not effortlessly in fairness, but driving around Philippe Albuquerque at the toe of the boot and being able to hold his line over the top of the rise into the heel at turn 8, and then just taking a huge amount of extra speed from turning to apex to make the pass for the lead of the race. Very impressive indeed by Pipo, but as I said at the time, I already had 13 laps or so on those Michelin tyres. Now the battle for second position on again. This might be the battle for the lead once Pipo comes back into the pit lane. He's been out there for about 25 minutes, so he's got about another 15 minutes, so 7 or 8 laps for Derani before his VP Racing fuel is going to become critical. But at the moment, Tinknell, well, he'll be sick of the sight, Jeremy, at the back of that Konica Minolta Acura. He'll know the part number on the rear wing by now, and it hasn't mattered whether it was Taylor or now Albuquerque. He hasn't really been able to find a decisive opportunity to put his Mazda alongside it in challenge.
He hasn't, but I'm looking at the lap times. That Philip Albuquerque, he's 2 seconds slower than the lap times that Ricky Taylor was turning, and that is, of course, allowing Pipo Derani to stretch his lead at the front. It was, I think, just under 5 seconds when they crossed the line 2 laps after the round of pit stops. It's now out to around about 8 seconds between first Derani and second Albuquerque, and last time around that lap time, that was a good bit better actually, 32.4 for Albuquerque. So it just took a few laps to get those tyres really up to optimal temperatures. And again, Albuquerque, he knows the long way to go in this race. He's usually experienced because he raced here last weekend and did fairly well. So he was just making sure he didn't lose that position while everything kind of gets up to temperature so far as he's concerned. I'm also watching Dane Cameron, who continues to struggle in that Meyer Shank racing car, the pink and black Acura. He's still continuing to fall back, so I think there must be some sort of an issue with that number 60 car.
Yeah, he's not been able to match the times of Ollie Pla, and he's doing 34, so now he's in traffic at the moment, so let's not worry too much about that, but they're normally very close indeed in their lap times as the leader in LMP3 heads to the pit lane. This is Jarrett Andretti for Andretti Autosport. Had Marco with them in the Sale at 6 hours last week. Jarrett out, and Ollie Askew getting in. Oliver Askew getting in, Shea Adam.
Yeah, not a bad day when you can hand over your race car to a driver like Oliver Askew. 4th in the race last week, hoping for a little bit better than that this week. Also into the pit lane for the LMP3 class, Felipe Fraga, birthday boy, gets aboard the 74 Riley Technology LMP3 machine, and Colin Brown is now behind the wheel of the 54, and oh yeah, Dylan Murray is piloting the 91, so lots of changes in LMP3. In LMP2, Gabby Aubrey has taken over for John Ferrano, that car's second stop. It was a quick stop because they basically only had to do the tire change and the driver change and splash it. And in the number 11 should now be Tristan Nunez, but it's still showing Stephen Thomas on the timing screen. Sorry, I misspoke. Fraga's birthday's tomorrow, not today. And then in GTD, we've got Misha Goikberg into the pit lane, handing over to Frank Pereira in the Grasser Lamborghini. They're hoping to get their first finish together of the year in that car. Rob Ferriol handing
over. A moment, we've had a change for second position while you were talking there, down towards turn 1. slightly balked out of turn 11 there was all kinds of traffic going on with people diving into the pits, and Philippe Albuquerque just lost a little bit of momentum going out of turn 11 and round the outside. Another outside pass, but staying in bounds at turn 1. Crucially, Harry Tincknell is up to second. Harry Tincknell up to second and immediately streaks away from the Konica Minolta Acura. Sorry, Shea, carry on with and finish what you were speaking about there. My apologies.
That's all right. There's just one more. Kat Legg is now aboard the number 88 Porsche in the field. And Misha Koikberg and the Grasser must have had a bad stop because they are still being shown as in the pit lane. But somebody who's not in the pit lane anymore, Robbie Foley, back out from behind the wall with the rectified power steering solution for Turner Motorsports.
Thank you, Shea. Let's take a look at how they lie then in our Mazda in-race update. An hour and 50 minutes to go. It's Cadillac that leads from Harry Tincknell and Mazda in second. 31 Whelen Engineering Cadillac, the red and white car, has Pipo Derani, and he's got 9 seconds. Remember that. 9 seconds as the gap back to the chasing Harry Tincknell in second position. And then it's Philippe Albuquerque for Konica Minolta, another 2 seconds back already. He's got 3 seconds on Kevin Magnussen. 31, 55, 10 and 0-1. Those top 4 within 14 seconds. Then it's another 10 seconds back to Loic Duval in the number 5, the dark grey and gold Mustang sampling Cadillac. In LMP2, Ben Keating into the pits again for PR1 Matheson Motorsport. He's done his drive time, so that's going to be interesting to see where he drops to in the LMP2 field. Nick Tandy leads for Corvette in the number 4 in 8th position overall, and his teammate Jordan Taylor has just pulled into the pits. Mikkel Jensen, by the way, has taken over the leading at number 52 PR1 Matheson Orica from Ben Keating. In LMP3, it's Ollie Askew at the wheel of the Andretti Autosport machine. He's just taken that over, and Rasmus Lind has come out in second place, and he is behind the wheel of the second place Performance Tech number 38. Finally, last but by no means least, Vasser Sullivan, and the GTDs haven't started their pit stops yet, so Vasser Sullivan for Lexus in the 12 car, Frankie Montecalvo ahead of Richie Highstand by about 4-5 seconds, and then Roman De Angelis for Heart of Racing Aston Martin is another 9 seconds further back in third in the 23 car. That's your top 3 there. That's your Mazda in-race update. An hour and 48 minutes still to go. So it's all going very interestingly in the front of the field. Earlier on this week, and in fact earlier on today, in between our 2 races, Ollie Jarvis talking to us from the Glen regarding the mentality, Jeremy, of winning a championship. I thought it was interesting that he said he would be quite happy to win the championship by consistency. Doesn't need to win a race, but they have. But the other interesting thing is, I asked him how hard you push to make up a position, and he says it depends what the position is and who you're fighting. At the moment, they're taking points from the leader in the championship. How hard do they push against the 31? If it's the end of the race and there's a good chance, quite hard, but they don't want to end up in the wall, Jeremy, because at this stage of the season, a DNF is not going to help your championship charge.
It certainly isn't. You're right, and particularly with the way that the points are given out in IMSA, you really need to finish all the races and finish them in the best position as you can. If you lose 1 place or so, that's fine, but if you lose 3 or 4 or 5, that's an awful lot worse, and it's difficult to make up that ground. Here now, pit stops for the leader in, was he ahead? Yes, he was ahead. Number 3 car, they'd be number 3 and 4 Corvettes. They'd be exchanging positions on a sort of semi-regular basis, but it's now number 3 car in the pits. Number 4 stays out. Nick Tandy at least 1 more lap.
Tandy was in the lead of that class before that 3 car came in. Remember, we saw them swapping positions going down. And the Grasser Racing Lamborghini leaving the pit very slowly indeed, and it had lost some pace before it came into the pit lane, so something is not well in the land of GRT. The number 19 car sporting a new livery this weekend, Shea, but it is not up to speed at all. No word from the team yet.
No, nothing yet. They had a very slow pit stop, and then the car did go out in the hands of Frank Pereira, but its outlap was much, much longer than it should have been, to the tune of about a minute and a half longer. In essence, it came into the pit lane, had some work done, spent, basically a drive-through of a normal pit stop time in the lane, and then went back out and was continuing slowly around the track. So I wouldn't be surprised to see race control giving that a black flag. But into the pit lane, Pipo Derani from the lead of the race in the 31 Whelen Engineering Cadillac. This time, no driver change. Once again, Pipo, if he's going well, leave him aboard. Fuel and tires. Oh no, they did. Felipe Nasser comes over the wall. His helmet colors matching perfectly the helmet colors of the Whelen Engineering crew. That's kind of cool, actually. I like that little bit of camaraderie going on between them. 4 new Michelins. Driver change is done. The door closes. Car comes off the air jack. So they give him windshield tear off? Yes, they are. There is rain in the area, so that windshield tear off might prove to be even more important later. 14 Lexus is also into the pit lane for Vassar Sullivan. Aaron Telitz out of this car, and that is Jack Hawksworth taking over there. So fuel and tires for the Lexus, fuel and tires for the number 23 Heart of Racing Aston Martin. Ross Gunn gets out of the car, Ross Gunn gets into the car from Roman DeAngelis, who gets out. Also in the pits, we've got Till Bechtelsheimer, the 66 Gradient Racing Acura, handing over to Mark Miller. Madison Snow from the pole-sitting car handing over to Brian Sellers, who I know is doing a rain dance, because if you remember 2015 rain race here, he was victorious in that. And Richard Highstand in the 39 Audi, he has handed over to Jeff Westphal as the Grasser Lamborghini has made it as far as the bus stop, but it looks like it'll go no further.
Yeah, and when you were talking shit, yeah, it did do its pit stop. It was long, and then it went out, and then it came straight back in again, and now it's only got as far as the inner loop. This is going to be a full course caution. If you can manage to get in now, you need to get in now. Otherwise you're going to cycle for all of those cars. Let's see what happens with Tinknell. Tandy is in to the pit lane. Where is the 55 car? Oh, bad news. Full course yellow. They didn't get a chance to come in. They're coming through the outer loop. Well, this is going to play very nicely for Felipe Nasser, who's just pitted and got back out. Loic Duval is in the pit lane now, and I reckon he got in before that happened. Now, did the leading GTD car get in before? Yes, he did. Yes, he did, by about 7 or 8 seconds. He was the only one of the GT Daytonas, Frank Montecalvo, who hadn't stopped at the front of the field, and he has got into the pit lane. Jeremy, this is going to shake things up with a full course caution here.
Well, yeah, it is, and I think that was. I think race control there waited to give everybody an opportunity who needed a bit, did before they threw the yellow. I don't think anybody was inconvenienced by that, were they? Because the number 12 car, that was I think that was the last of the GTD cars to come onto pit lane, so that would have been a major blow.
Correct.
If they hadn't been able to make that stop.
The only thing I would say is that I'm surprised that the Mazda and the Konica Minolta Acura didn't dive in. They may not have had the opportunity to, of course, but that car was moving very slowly and took at least a couple of laps at full speed to get to where it was. It barely came out of the pit, let's be honest. I think I might have rolled the dice there. I suppose it's more difficult when you're at the front of the field, and they're only about... Well, they're about halfway through their fuel load in the 55 Mazda that leads, and the Konica Minolta in second, K-Mag in third, the same. Loic Duval has just stopped. The Whelen Engineering Cadillac has just stopped. Dane Cameron again. It's going to be the 5 of the 31 Cadillacs, I reckon, who come out of this well. And the Cadillac safety car then will be out on the circuit for the first time. So we have had a very nice 57 minutes of green flag racing, and it is a quick, very quick flat toe to get that Grasser Lamborghini out of the way. I think we might, well, as rain is being reported around the track, the pit lane could open this time around. Shea, Adam, what are you hearing from race control?
I am hearing that there is rain around the track. The call has not yet been given for the pit lane to open up. Now, everybody did get an opportunity before race control through the yellow, i.e. we saw that demonstrated with the 12 Lexus being allowed to come in. But the biggest thing for me in this caution and this incident on track, it was caused by a GTD car. And that means that Turner Motorsport, if they continue around for 12 more laps, will gain 1 position and 20 championship points. That's why you fix the car. That's why you don't call it a day.
Yeah, good point. Certainly more raindrops in the area of the toe of the boot, which, as Jeremy was explaining earlier on, is exactly where the weather came from earlier on today. Extraordinary. Yeah, wipers on round there, and a little bit of a... Oh no, it's pouring. It's pouring at exactly the spot that Jeremy was describing earlier on, from the toe of the boot over the top of the rise to turn 8. So, Jeremy, everybody, once they have the opportunity, everybody's going to have to pit here, because they're going to have to go, surely, for wet weather tyres.
Yeah, they are. Boy, this is good news. Actually, this is very good news for the cars that hadn't been. You were talking about the fact how number 31 and number 5 in particular would benefit from this because they had just made a pit stop. Now everybody's going to have to come in. So track position again is a crucial factor here. Everybody will have to change tyres, and I think. Well, it's going to be interesting to see, of course, because number 31, number 5, they don't need any fuel or just a splash. But it takes quite a long time to change all 4 tyres. That's why we saw the strategies playing out last week, where some people changed 4 tyres, some people changed 2, and one team, number 55, changed just the 1, because that was the only time it was allowable within that fuel fill window, if you like, the amount of time it took to top off that number 55 tank with fuel.
Shea, I am presuming here that both 31 Whelen Cadillac and the Mustang sampling number 5 did actually take slick tyres. They weren't that clever, were they?
They were not grooved. Okay. I can tell you that.
Okay. I just thought I'd better ask.
It's a very good point
there,
John,
the
because
cars.
We had earlier on rushlessness saying, with the amount of technology they've got, could it be, are some teams being really clever and back timing until the rain arrives, and then thinking we'll make the stop then and make the call then? They might have been, but what I don't know is it would have been risky, very clever but risky. But you get it wrong 5 minutes either way, Jeremy, it could absolutely mess your mates.
Yeah, you raise a very, very good point. Is that why the number 31 car and number 5 car came in after, 18, 19 minutes of the race? With maybe their weather predictive told them that it was going to be raining in about 37 or 8 minutes time. In which case, maybe they could hang on, make that stop, and go onto wet weather tyres. But gosh, look at that, how graphic that is.
It's
from yesterday. I think it's from yesterday, actually. That was from yesterday, the shot we're looking at on the screen. No, it was yesterday.
Yesterday, excuse me. Yeah, absolutely right.
It just the rain just came down on the latter part, the northern part of the front straight here. The turn 11 was completely dry, and then halfway down the pit straight, a wall of water.
Shea is frantically now trying to find out what tyres the 2 Cadillacs who pitted most latterly went onto. There's no doubt in my mind it's wet weather tyres now, the grooved racing tyres, and that's what will be slapped on for anybody who comes into the pit lane. I suspect we'll find out as the pass around has completed. Shea?
Hey, John, you want a little bit of irony? I just got a text message. Somehow, it's not raining on the pit lane right now.
Yeah, it's raining everywhere else, but not the pit lane. It's absolutely bucketing it down from the toe of the boot to the heel of the boot at turn 8. It looks like it's 4 hours later, it's that dark there. And then the front straight, as Shea rightly says, the pit straight is actually very pleasant. Sun still seems to be shining there, to be honest. We'll try and get an answer about if anybody's been very clever. We've got red flag. We've got red flag. This must be severe weather warning in the area. So this is not necessarily for what's going on the track, but what's going around the track. The time is running at 1:36, 1 hour 36 minutes to go. We have gone red flag. So all of the cars will come into the pit lane on the tyres that they are on and into the acceleration lane on driver's left, and they are effectively in parc fermé, which means no work, although a team member will be allowed probably to cover the car just in case. But I have not heard anything from race control. Remain in the fast lane behind the safety car, so that bit I got right. But this must be, Shea, for weather in the area. Camera operators reporting lightning back to us, and at that point that becomes a safety issue. Shea Adam.
Yeah, have not yet gotten the call from race control about a stage 3 lockdown, but there is lightning at the track, and they have said that there is lightning within the minimum perimeter. So that's why everybody is being called off of their perches. It's about the corner workers and the camera crews and keeping everybody safe. Now, during this red flag period, one crew member will be permitted to go out to the car. They can put a cover on the car, and the driver is allowed to get out and go back to their pit box if they choose. But you don't have to get out, but you don't want to sit in the car either, because then the windshield fogs up, and that's just even more annoying.
Yeah, good point.
And stage 3 weather warning has just dropped into my inbox.
There you go. Explain what you mean by that, Shea, and what the protocols are from IMSA and the track. So what happens at this point? Shea?
In terms of...
Yeah, so...
In terms of...
When we're talking about stage 3, we start at stage 1 and go to stage 2. So this is the most severe of the weather warning or the weather situations, correct?
Yes, this is take shelter now. This is do not mess around. All the IMSA officials will have to go back to the IMSA truck. All the teams are encouraged not to stay on their pit boxes. This is a safety concern when lightning is this close.
And if you're listening to us on the PA at the moment, probably not the best idea to be in the grandstands at the moment. So we ask you to make your way carefully, but as quickly as you can out of harm's way. And if you can seek cover elsewhere than in the grandstands, that's probably the best idea. At IMSA Radio, if you want to get in touch with us, the clock continues to run. It was an hour and 37 minutes. And at the track, we aren't on the PA anymore because the warning is being put out over the PA as well. So this is stage 3, as Shea Adam mentioned. Everybody will come into the pit lane. Good idea, I think, to do a quick rundown, give you the top positions. So if you are listening to us at the track on XM202 or on RS2, time to seek shelter with weather warning at stage 3 at the moment. Harry Tincknell under red flag leads for Mazda with Acuras in 2nd and 5th position, and between them 2 Cadillacs. So it's the 55 Mazda from the 10 Acura. Then the 0-1 of Kevin Magnussen and Cadillac Chip Ganassi. In LMP2, it's the 52 of PR1 Matheson Motorsports from Tower Motorsports, number 8, and Tristan Nunez for Win Autosport in the 11. GTLM have the 2 Corvettes ahead of the WeatherTech Porsche LMP3, and Andretti Autosport leading from Riley and Performance Tech 36, 74 and 38. And in GTD, Zach Veach for Vassar Sullivan leads for Lexus in the 12. In the 39, it's Richard Highstand, the Carbon Audi, and Ross Gunn, Heart of Racing Teams, Aston Martin Vantage in 3rd position. Whilst we've got this delay, first of all, thank you to all of our officials, our corner workers and volunteers around the track, whether you're taking people's temperatures, stethoscope around your neck, driving a tow truck or whatever. Thank you very much indeed. And we'll go back to a little earlier in the week when I was joined on IMSA Radio by Ollie Jarvis to discuss the fabulous win last Sunday for Mazda, for Harry Tinknell and Jonathan Bomarito in the Mazda number 55 for Idemitsu, Mazda and Multimatic in the Sahlen 6 Hours.
The WeatherTech Sports Car Championship on IMSA Radio.
Oliver Jarvis, congratulations on the win in the Sahlen 6 Hours. That looked like a tough one, sir.
It certainly was. Amazing victory for the whole team, but it was not an easy race or an easy weekend for that matter.
I said in the commentary, I thought your car had pace ultimately in the race. Take us through the machinations of getting, never mind to the last pit stop, of just getting it race ready, because you tested, you had practice in qualifying, then you had to do an engine change. That was by no means an easy, straightforward weekend for you and the rest of the Multimatic Mazda team.
No, definitely not. And I think there was a lot of expectation on us arriving at this particular track. It's where we won in 2019. We were very dominant back then. A lot has changed. There's been a change in tyre, a lot of BOP changes. But sometimes when you roll a car out of the truck, you put it on the track and everything just works, and you can do a whole weekend and just change a few clicks on a damper or maybe slight changes on roll bar or ride height. I mean, we rolled out Friday and the car was just completely out the window, which is quite unusual for us.
Very unusual,
and
yeah.
Every time a driver got in the car, we were making changes. We didn't have the luxury of even using the same driver to make them changes, because with 2 1-hour sessions, we ran 3 drivers for this race. I got 4 time laps on the Friday, as did Jonathan. I think Harry got a few more. And then, for example, on the Saturday in the test session, I think JB and Harry got 4 or 5 time laps. I got a few more because we did the quali session. But it was basically 1 run each. So you were making a change to the car and taking the driver out, it's quite an unusual way of doing things, but we just had to shortcut the process. And we struggled. We made a big step for qualifying, which was too far. And simply for the race, we kind of backed off to somewhere between where we ended the last test session and qualifying. And we were hopeful going into the race that would put us in a good window.
Given what you've said then, and the fact that the guys and girls had to change the power unit overnight on Saturday into Sunday, how important was that warm-up session then on Sunday morning? Because we don't always get one in IMSA competition.
No, I think, we warm-up's a funny one because we begrudge it because we have to get up really early, even if the race is at 5 in the afternoon. So, the whole team sort of moans about warm-up, but then it's circumstances like that where it really plays in your favour, because it's, when you do an engine change, it's just really nice to get that 1 lap. We do an install lap, as we call it. We go out, drive around, come back to the pits, and it allows the crew just to check everything.
Yeah.
Check everything's, everything's running correctly, everything's being put back as it should. And then it also gave us, I think we a lot of people, in warm-up, they'll scrub tyres, they'll check the balance, but it's not a focus. We were still using warm-up to get a read on the car for the race.
Wow.
As it turned out, we didn't make any changes from warm-up to the race, but it also gave us that little bit of confidence. I think we top warm-up. Probably, we were probably one of the very few cars that was actually pushing, but it just put us in a better position with more confidence heading into the race.
Yeah, confidence is a funny thing, isn't it? And you can lose it very quickly, but one little session like that can bring it all back. I'll come on to the race in a second, but I want to go back even further, because the previous race was at Detroit, and the car clearly had pace at Detroit. You were battling for the victory there. Now, obviously, a very different atmosphere and not atmosphere, a characteristic of track at Detroit. Very bumpy street circuit. It's got some medium quick corners as well. Again, though, how does that build into knowing that you're going to a 6-hour race? Okay, we've had a quick car, got a little bit of a BOP break as well. That kind of thing you would have thought would have been positive. So to come off the truck in not such a good place at the Glen must have been a real disappointment to you.
Yeah, Detroit was like you say, very positive, because I think it's probably the one track I would have highlighted before the start of the year as maybe a potential weakness for us, the street circuits. It's definitely suited the Cadillacs more in the past. So to arrive there and to see the pace we had was really encouraging. I mean, I think we really should have come away with a podium. We just got overcut in the pits. As is the case in IMSA, it's a lot of strategy involved. But I challenged Felipe. I think we did the whole race nose to tail. It's nice to have a good battle with an ex-teammate of mine. But it would have been nice to get the podium. But what's amazing about IMSA, and I was chatting to our damper guy about this actually, is you go from Detroit to somewhere like Watkins. You could not go to two different circuits in terms of characteristics and damping. And this is where, I love racing in the US and I love the US tracks. These tracks are so different that one just doesn't lead into the other.
Yeah.
There's so much difference on the cars, or different directions you can go in the damping to make the car work, that throughout the year you're going to see different manufacturers, different cars, and even different teams running the same cars. We've seen it already here in Watkins Glen. The Meyer Shank car struggled in Detroit and was the fastest car at the weekend. So it's so dependent on getting the perfect setup for the individual tracks.
We got a really interesting Twitter conversation going on in the middle of the race, actually, about the difference in atmosphere between the IMSA events and events in Europe, and particularly the ELMS was highlighted. Not saying it was better or worse, not looking for the differences in terms of being critical or saying one was better than the other, but there is a difference in atmosphere in the paddock, and I can't. There was a few good ideas put out there. I always think that it's good that we, generally speaking, had centralised catering and everybody mingles around in the US. It's quite open, but you can say that in terms of access. You can say that about the ELMS as well. But there is just a little bit of difference in the character of the event as a whole. All.
Yeah, definitely. And I certainly noticed it when I came over. I feel like it's much more open. And I don't know why that is. Just walking around the paddock, you feel there's a very friendly atmosphere.
Yeah.
You can walk into other people's awnings, garages. And I think the racing's really hard and it's really tough racing. And it's just accepted that you are going to have contacts, you are going to have incidences. And it's kind of just left at the weekend, or, maybe it lingers for one or two, but then it's forgotten and everyone moves on. There's a lot of respect because we're aware we share the track. And we were chatting about this during the week, actually. And I think one thing, I loved my time in the WEC, but if you have a quicker car, you'll go win the race, 10, 15 seconds, bar a problem. Whereas in IMSA, you could have a car that's a second quicker. It doesn't guarantee you the win, because with an hour and 30 to go, you could, safety car comes out, you get jumped in the pits, you go down to fourth. So you're constantly in these tight battles with your competitors, and the racing's hard. And I think that builds this form of respect and openness off the track.
You said something there that came up actually in that Twitter conversation of IMSA Radio at the weekend and IMSA TV. You mentioned awnings. Yeah, there are some tracks where you're in garages in the US, but for the most part, everybody works out of an open pit lane and then they go back to awnings in the paddock. It's much more difficult to lock yourself away there, isn't it? I know the trucks are there and you can get away, but in general terms, the teams are a bit closer together. We've seen in the past some teams lending other teams bits of equipment. There was an engine hoist that was loaned from Turner Motorsport to Paul Miller Racing a couple of races ago. It's that sort of thing that makes it a little bit more collegiate in the paddock. But my goodness, it's no less cut and thrust out on the track.
No, and I think I hadn't thought about that actually. You're very right. When I was in WC with Audi, you're in the garage and your trucks are directly behind the garage.
Correct.
So you don't need to walk through the paddock.
Correct.
You walk.
You don't see anybody other than your teammates.
Exactly. And you're in your own little bubble. Whereas here at Watkins Glen, for example, from pit lane to our trucks is probably a 10-minute walk. And in just that, you're walking past other team members, team personnel, drivers, and you start communicating, and if you do that over sort of 10 races a year, you start to build relationships and get to know people in a different way. And I think also you touched on the hospitality thing. When you have these hospitalities or these big hospitalities, it's fantastic, but you end up in your own little bubble. I saw it in the DTM, I saw it in WEC, in DTM, Mercedes had their hospitality, Audi had theirs, and the pit lane was split, and you almost didn't see the Mercedes guys.
Yes.
Which sounds crazy. You could go a whole weekend and not see them.
I can't remember who it was, who said to me, it was a driver that said to me, it's kind of hard to have a bit of a battle with somebody that carries on off the track when you've got to stand in the queue at Marion's for your breakfast the next morning next to the same guy. Words can be hard, even harsh words, but ultimately and then you can go, shall I get you coffee? Yeah, all right. And then it's kind of forgotten and off you go until the next time. And I thought that was a really, really good point. Let's get on to the race before we start talking about this weekend. The 6 hours, the Sahlen's 6 hours of the Glen is one of the absolute classics on a very traditional natural terrain road circuit, as the Americans call it. The challenges have become different over the years. It was resurfaced, a couple of 3 seasons ago now. It's a wee bit smoother. New tyres, as you mentioned a couple of seasons ago. So the speeds and the lap times are phenomenal now, It's a real commitment track, isn't it?
Yeah, the track's just superb. Just to try and explain it to the viewers, for a driver, this is everything we love in a race circuit. It's fast, it's committed, it's flowing. The grip levels, it's really eye-opening. You roll out onto the circuit and the speeds you can carry are just incredible. I'd say we're a gear higher in every corner than you'd expect to be. Really? Looking at the track.
Wow.
Yeah, you look at a corner and you're like, a third gear corner. And then all of a sudden you look at data, or you get to feel the grip and it's a fourth gear corner. You can just carry so much more speed because the track surface is so gripping. And I think that's what makes it. I mean, it's a great circuit in its own right, but if it was a low grip track, it would be a very different experience altogether.
Yeah, I noticed as well just how many outside passes were getting made, either for position or indeed, when the DPIs like yourself or Harry or J-Bomb were going through traffic, even through, you know, a battle for the GTD lead or the battle for the LMP LM lead or LMP3 lead, you were able to go round the outside. So there was a couple of grooves there as well. It made for very exciting viewing from our point of view in the Haggerty Global Broadcast Centre. What was it like in the track? Because it looked like somebody actually did say, right, nice advert for the video game, can we now go back to seeing the real life? Which I thought was really quite funny. What was it like in the car in that kind of traffic situation where you really can't let up at all, can you?
No, you just can't. You can't afford to back off. It's so competitive now. And, you know, I think this year, I obviously watch the race, and, you know, you start to get a feel for where you can and can't overtake. And I feel this year it was even more, you know, there was more ability to overtake around the outside.
Great.
You know, we've always done it in the carousel, but I felt the time loss in the carousel in the past was much more. You know, now we're going around the outside, and you're only losing 2/10, you know, but you're completely off the racing line. Whereas if you take somewhere like Road America, where you've got the long right-hander, if you go around the outside there, you end up in the gravel trap because it's marbles, it's off camber, you know. But to see people after the carousel, you've got turn 6, 7, you know, these are tight hairpins. But to see the DPIs passing around the outside of them, that's very unusual. Yeah, that's very unusual, even for the whole year. You know? So the grip is all the way across the circuit.
Is that more important for you guys? It has been a feature in the past. You guys have got the smallest engine, 4-cylinder, turbocharged 2-litre. In traffic, it means you've got a dynamic car. It turns very well. But is momentum your friend then in that car, as against the cars that have got, you know, 5-litre plus V8s, normally aspirated? They've got a bit more low down grunt. So do you have to be a bit more decisive in traffic and try and keep that minimum corner speed up?
I think you used a great word there, and, you know, that's, you know, momentum. We really need to keep our momentum, to keep our minimum speeds up. That's where we make our lap time. So, you know, if we can get round the outside and keep that minimum speed up, as opposed to stopping the car and, you know, and V'ing the corner more, so, you know, braking hard, stopping it and trying to get them on the exit, it's much more beneficial to us if we can go around the outside. So yes, there's certainly a difference there. And it's something we feel with the Mazda in traffic, we do get hurt on the tighter, twistier tracks. Certainly the Cadillacs seem to have an incredible ability just to get the power down and, you know, get out of the corner. Because it's one thing having the power, but it's also them transferring that power through the rear tyres onto the track, and, you know, the TC and suspension and everything working in unison.
End of the race, got to ask you about this. You did your stints. Ultimately, you have to then stand and watch a teammate, which I always think is it must be absolute torture, because there's nothing you can do. You've done your bit at that point. Tinks double stinted it to the end, didn't he? And out comes the opportunity to come in for your last pit stop. How much number crunching was going on? Because you, as a team, whoever made the decision, and you can tell me all about the decision-making process, no tyres, where some of the cars that you were racing took 2 tyres, and you took only the amount of fuel you needed to get track position. How quickly did that decision have to get made?
In a way, I wish people could hear what goes on the stand, but it's probably a good job they can't. So on the stand, we have an intercom system. I mean, there's a lot of intelligent people up there. But on calls like that, there's so much discussion going on, which is a great thing, because everybody has a slightly different opinion. And, you know, drivers have their opinion. There was me and Jonathan Bomarito up there. You know, you've got Lena, of course, but she's also got a full team behind her, Larry Holt. And there was a lot of back and forth. And ultimately, you know, unfortunately for Lena at times, she has to make that call. And they got it absolutely spot on. But, you know, the first call was, do you come into box under yellow? Which was definitely the right call. Yes. I think the top 4 cars made that decision. Others, you know, if you're at the back it's quite easy to say, do you know what, we're going to do something different.
Correct.
But when you're at the front, it's very important that, you play the percentage game. So that was the right call. And then it was a bit of a strange one, because if the race had gone yellow when it gone green when it should have done, there would have been a splash.
Yes.
But I believe the 10 and the 1 got mixed up, or there was some discussion about what order they should be in. So I think we had 2 more laps of yellow.
Which was about 6 minutes.
2 more.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's about 3 racing laps, maybe even 3 or 4 racing laps.
Wow.
That changed the whole dynamic of the race. So we went from having a splash to, hold on a second, we can stretch this. And then it became about fuel numbers. And fuel numbers is a very difficult thing, because the team's only as good as the information they're given, and what we hear on the intercom is, I think we can make it on 2.2, and then someone's like, I think it's 2.18, and but that number is constantly changing, because every lap Harry does that, if he has a lap where he uses a bit more fuel in traffic, all of a sudden that comes down. And what we were saying on the pit wall, and I think one area where the drivers were able to sort of add some experience was, we were saying, right, bank some fuel now.
Yes.
And that's what I felt the 60 did. So if you've got to get to the end on 2.2, for example.
What's that, litres per lap?
I actually don't know.
Oh, it's just a number. It's just what you measure it by.
For me, it's just a number.
Okay, got you. Okay.
If it's 2.2, I was saying, let's run 2.15. 2.16, because you're going to need that fuel at some point, because in traffic you often use more fuel. If you've got a choice, for example, into turn 1, because the way we save fuel is to lift and coast, but if you can just get ahead into the bus stop or into turn 1 by using a bit more fuel, it's more beneficial, because you gain lap time. You put a car between you and the competitor, and that's what we did really well, and that's what the team managed really well. Is we managed to bank enough fuel so that Harry's last lap was flat out, but it's also having that confidence that you've got the fuel in the tank. And the other factor was how long the race is going to be.
Well, I was going to ask you about that. So when you came in that yellow flag stop, you didn't think you could make it to the end if it went green, when we all thought it was going to be, with probably somewhere around about just under 50 minutes to go. As it was, we knocked about another 6 minutes off that, as we've said. So was that a full tank, a full fill that you put in, or was that a timed fill to say, well, we're going to have to splash anyway, we might as well get track position? And was that a consideration, or was it just, hey, let's brim fill it and see what happens?
No, that was a full fill.
Right, okay. So then at that point you think, we're not going to get to the end, but then there's 2 more stops, so then you're on your fuel save, and you've got to do that from the start. You can't ask somebody to do that with 10 minutes to go. It doesn't work. Ask Kevin Magnussen. Chip Ganassi didn't quite get their numbers right towards the end, and he had to fuel save very, very hard towards the end of the race. But then there's the time. Now, you've mentioned that there. I was counting this down on the commentary and looking at Dennis, our flagman, and he didn't appear to have the white flag in his hand. And I was looking, and I'm thinking, I think they're going to have to do another lap here. And then almost at the last moment, the white flag came out. I don't think you guys would have made it if you'd had to do another full-speed lap all.
No, so I believe it was about 3-4 seconds. If we'd have been 3 or 4 seconds quicker, the race would have gone another lap, because it's not a race that's run by number of laps. It's a time thing.
Correct.
So
did you have to get onto? Did somebody on the wall? Did Lena on the wall? Lena Gade, the engineer, car engineer on there. Did she have to be talking to Harry to say, we don't want to do another lap, H? Bring that gap down a bit. He's not catching you enough. Is that the sort of conversation that was going on?
So they actually didn't tell Harry about that, because it's to try and describe that while he's in the car. It's information he probably doesn't need.
Wow.
So what they were doing is, every time we crossed the line, they'd They'd work out how long was left in the race. They'd then do their calculations. And then they were trying to slow the pace down naturally and not back him up, but use the fuel also to slow him down.
Yeah.
By giving him less fuel to use per lap.
Yeah.
And it was on a tightrope. And then you've got to factor in the traffic. If your last 3 laps are clear, you're going to be 3 or 4 seconds quicker. So it really was a fine line. But we were very conscious on the pit wall that it was, whenever Harry got a 2-3 second gap through the traffic to Olivier Pla, it was then about conserving fuel, but also backing that pace up because we didn't want the race to go that extra lap.
No, and it looked to me as though Tinks ran out at around about, what was it, turn 7 on the slowed down lap.
Yes.
So that wasn't flat out. So there's no way you would have made another lap at full speed there. No way at all.
No, I think we ran the last 2 laps flat out. So, if they weren't confident if we'd have saved, it would have been very tight, very, very tight. Like I say, we were playing with very finite numbers. There was very little margin for error.
Oliver Jarvis, thank you very much indeed from Team Idemitsu Mazda.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
Ollie Jarvis talking to me earlier this week about that quality drive by the whole team, quality effort by the whole team last weekend for the win at the Sealand 6 Hours of the Glen. Listen carefully, there's no car engines in the background. Well, the countdown is down to 65 minutes and we've been under red flag for extreme weather conditions in the area for about 25 minutes now here at the Glen, waiting for an update from our IMSA officials. So nothing has happened. The clock, as I say, is counting down at the moment. Harry Tincknell still at the lead of the race at the moment in the Mazda DPI, as it was when we left you. The irony is that the rain has stopped, certainly for around most of the circuit. It didn't really rain very much at all, if anything, on the start-finish line and the pit lane. It was the reports of lightning in the area that's brought the race to a halt. And at the moment we are waiting for an update from IMSA. Let's check in with Shea Adam. We are just hearing from the track that we are expecting, if there's no further lightning in the area, to roll at 8 o'clock local time. So that's in about 14 minutes. Shea Adam, our VP Racing Pit and Paddock reporter. Is that what you're hearing as well? Just seeing that being tweeted by the teams.
Yes, correct. I've actually just had to tell a couple of drivers to go back to their race cars because they were sitting waiting for updates. And nice of us to get that from the race control channel for sure. There were a lot of people sitting on the pit lane who were quite confused as to why we were under a red flag, and I had to explain lightning is in the area, and when it's within a 10-mile radius, there is a 30-minute clock, non-negotiable. It's for the safety of the people at the track. So even though you may not be able to see it, you know that there's no raindrops falling on your head, you're completely perplexed as to why we're not out on the track. Safety first, and we take care of our marshals and our corner workers and our camera operators because we love them.
If that happens and we're waiting for formal confirmation from IMSA for that, Jeremy, I reckon we could at the front of the field have another race like last weekend. It's a bit damp in places, but I can't imagine, well, how's everybody on fuel? 31 Wayland Cadillac out for a couple of laps. Loic Duval out for a lap. Do they roll the dice and hope, Jeremy, that we get into the window of 43 or 44 minutes as the clock continues to roll?
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. When the red flag came out, we were thinking, boy. When the full course yellow came out, at least we were thinking, boy, this is good news for the. For number 31 and number 5, which had just made their pit stops. Then when the rain came down, we thought, wow, this is good news for the cars that had not made their stops, because everybody would have to come in to change onto wet weather tyres in any case. But now it doesn't look like we are going to need tyre changes at this stage, at least. As you say, most of the track that we have seen appears to be dry, so they can certainly continue to run on the Michelin tyres with which they are equipped right now. So it now goes back to the fuel window, and we don't know how long there is going to be remaining in the race at this stage, whether they're just going to pretend the red never happened and just extend it into whenever we finish. That would be 9:30 or so. Not sure when's
we've got
the sun go down here.
We've got an hour and 1 minute on the clock at the moment, and that is still running, and so that's all we can rely on at the moment. But we have seen sometimes time added on to sessions, particularly qualifying sessions, if that ability is there from IMSA. But as it stands at the moment, it's an hour and 54 seconds still to run. 1 hour, so 60 minutes, and the clock is still counting. If we do get the cars off in 10 minutes time, that would be 50 minutes. Another couple of laps, they're going to be into the fuel window. I tell you, this could be absolutely outstanding for Felipe Nasr and Pipo Derani, and possibly as well for Loic Duval, except of course Loic has been in the car since the start of the race year, so there must be some drivers who haven't hit drive time yet because they haven't actually been in the cars.
Well, there are a lot of drivers who haven't hit drive time, but not because they haven't tried to drive the car, because the red flag came out. So I'm not going to list off those. But the ones who have not even put their helmets on so far today, at least that we've seen, Ollie Jarvis, who we just heard from, in the 55 Mazda, Renger van de Zande in the 01 Cadillac Chip Ganassi racing machine, Tristan Vautier, co-driver of Loic Duval for the number 5 Mustang Sampling Cadillac, one Nicholas Tandy of the Shire, not too far from you, in the number 4 Corvette. Nick started. I'm sorry. Yeah. And the race winner from the race just a couple hours ago, Mr. Bill Oberlin. He's been sitting on the pit box. Bill had that champagne. I think it's waiting until after the race. I hope it's waiting until after the race. But yeah, that car, which Robbie Foley brought in during the red flag, only needs 9 more laps to jump ahead of that 19 Grasser Racing Lamborghini. That is the Turner objective from henceforth. And with the clock counting down, they're got to be getting a little bit nervous that their opportunity to make that chance happen is going out the window.
There is movement on the pit lane. Corvette Racing, among others, who 3 or 4 minutes ago aiming for an 8 p.m. Eastern roll-off. That's now 8 minutes away. And we do have people back in the grandstands. Umbrellas are going down. Car covers are coming off in the pit lane. So somewhat better that we can report, Jeremy. It is going to be a dash for points again this week. We might, if not have a carbon copy, something similar to last Sunday. And do you know what? I'm all right with that, Jeremy. I'm really all right if we get the same kind of excitement. Yeah,
it was a tremendous race last weekend, that's for sure. And I just hope it's not kind of totally determined by the weather. But as long as we get some racing in before the end, then everybody's going to be happy. But it's certainly going to be. We just can't speculate right now how long there's going to be remaining in the race when we get back to green, and so it could be 40 minutes, it could be 50 minutes, it could be no time, which I think is the least likely of those options, which is good news.
Yeah.
The weather does appear to have moved on. So we've got to hope that we are going to go back to get some proper racing in. And judging by what we've seen in the first, what was an hour or so of the race, it was absolutely superb. Just over an hour of the race, wasn't there? So it was great, and I would certainly expect more of the same in the final stages.
as far as the championship's concerned, Jeremy, might that be playing into the mind? We heard what Ollie Jarvis said about championship considerations, as we've now got course vehicles on the track. That's a good sign as well. Where is the Mustang Sampling Cadillac? Where is the Whelen Engineering Cadillac in the championship? Because, you know, they're the one who've probably got the most to gain if they roll the dice and decide to fuel save all the way to the end of this race.
Yeah, I think all the teams are going to be pretty close. Actually, since last week, there was a very slight balance of performance change in DPI to give the Cadillacs 1 extra litre of fuel on their tank size. It was 69 litres, it's now 70 litres. So, you know, they can go, you know, a tad, you know, half a lap more perhaps than was the case last week. But, you know, the hope, my point here is that, you know, IMSA tries to take into account absolutely everything, including the fact you talked about the fact before we've got the 2 litre Mazda turbo engine against the 5.5 litre Cadillac V8, and then the 3.5 litre twin turbo Acura. So 3 completely different engines. They use fuel at completely different rates, but IMSA tries to equate that such that each of those cars can go as close as possible to the same distance, time or distance on a full tank of fuel. So that is something that's very much taken into account. So hopefully by now, with that little tweak, you know, they should be very, very close.
Yeah, agreed. Here's how it stands then. Before anything else happens, we've got the Mazda number 55 leading. Harry Tincknell is 13 laps into what is normally a 24 or 25 lap stint. Exactly the same situation for the Konica Minolta Acura with Philippe Albuquerque. The slight wrinkle, as Shays mentioned, Ollie Jarvis has not yet been in the 55 car, whereas Ricky Taylor started the number 10 Cadillac. Kevin Magnussen has been aboard the 01 Cadillac Chip Ganassi Racing for 14 laps since he was last in for VP Racing Fuel, and his teammate Renger van der Zande has not been in the car. Pipo Derani has done 34 laps in the Whelen Engineering Cadillac and handed over to Felipe Nasser 3 laps ago. So Felipe could potentially go to the end once we roll out. Dane Cameron has taken over the number 60 Meyer Shank Acura from Ollie Pla. He's, again, 13 laps into a stint. So depending on when we go, we'll likely need some fuel before the end of the race. Mustang Sampling Cadillac, Loic Duval has been in since the start of the race. So Tristan Vautier has not driven that car, which is a shame because it's probably got enough fuel to do the better part of 40 minutes, which might be just enough to get them home. So that's how it stands at the front of the race. In the other classes, it's a little more cut and dried because everybody, for the most part, was in the pit lane at round about the same time. In LMP2, the Orica that leads is that of PR1 Matheson Motorsport, the number 52 car. And Mikkel Jensen has been out for 5 laps. Gabby Aubrey, who has taken over from John Ferrano. I should say Mikkel Jensen, by the way, took over from Ben Keating, so both their drivers have been in. Gabby Aubrey's been in for 7 laps. Tristan Nunes has been in for 7 laps, having taken over from Stephen Thomas. In the 2 Corvettes, Tom Milner took over just a couple of laps ago, having had that car started by Nick Tandy. Antonio Garcia took over from Jordan Taylor 4 laps ago. In LMP3, the leader is the 36 Andretti Autosport car. That came into the pit lane with Oliver Askew behind the wheel. He'd taken it over some 7 laps beforehand. Felipe Fraga took over the second place car 74 from Riley, and that was 8 laps ago. Rasmus Lind took over the Performance Tech car some 6 laps ago as sunshine begins to grace us again. And Colin Brown took over the Core Autosport car 8 laps ago. So they're all roughly similar. Let me just run down to have a look at where we are in GTD. Pretty much everybody pitted within the last couple of laps, didn't they? Because the last one to pit, Jeremy, was the Frank Montecalvo car, which Zach Veach has taken over, and that was done the lap before the initial yellow, which is now turned red, has gone out. So that should be a dash to the finish. We're just waiting to find out how many laps we will get upon the resumption. We expect the drivers to fire up the engines in a minute or so's time and roll out behind the Cadillac. I reckon then, Shea, that half the DPI field need to change their drivers to get to the end and be legal.
Yes, and the interesting thing in all of this is that the drive times are adjusted, the minimum drive times are adjusted for everybody in the field. It was only 10 minutes to begin with for the DPI and GTLM cars, so nobody should have any sort of issue getting at least, 4 minutes behind the wheel of the car? You wouldn't put your driver in at the end of the race just to get points in this one. You want to get as many positions as you can as well. And with Ollie Jarvis, Renger van der Zande, and Tristan Vautier as the three drivers who have been sitting on the pit box waiting for their opportunity the whole time, there aren't three much more eager drivers in the DPI category than those three. So yeah, they're going to definitely be chomping at the bit for the pit stops and practically ripping their co-drivers out of the cars.
Waiting to hear some engines fire up. It is
full course yellow.
Yeah, full course yellow has been called, so we will be rolling. Expect to hear some glorious engine noise. We're live on RS2 across the world, on XM202 in the United States, and if you're outside the US, it's sound and vision on imsaradio.com, and that's where you will find us. So we do have cars rolling, sound of engines in the background with enough sun to cast shadows. This is great news. 50 minutes on the nose as they rolled out of the pit lane. Thank you for staying with us, those of you at Watkins Glen as well. Well done for finding yourself some shelter. It's almost time to go back to green. This, Jeremy Shaw, is going to be intriguing at the front of the field.
It is. It's completely changed the dynamic of the race, of course, now, because we've got, 49 minutes remaining right now. We're going to be doing most likely 2 laps under the safety car here before we go back to green, I would think, which is going to leave time for probably, I think, just over 40 minutes then. So I think everybody is going to have to make one more pit stop, including number 31 and the number 5, most likely, unless there's another full course caution. But even if that's the case, the number 31 and number 5 are going to need literally a splash of fuel, whereas the other contenders in DPI are going to need quite more than half a tank.
And the pits are open, Shea, this time around for prototypes.
Correct, which means we are going to have at least 2 laps behind the safety car. The pits open this time for prototypes. I would fully expect to see, well, everybody down the pit lane in prototypes, because at this point in time, with the amount of safety car running we're going to have, you can almost guarantee you're going to make it to the end of the race with an asterisk after guaranteed, not money back guarantee on that one. But the prototypes should be coming down the pit lane in this one. Then the GT cars will have it open the next lap around, and then it'll be open for anybody trying to get a lap back or whatnot. And then we should be going back to green.
Shea Adam is our VP Racing Fuel Pit and Paddock reporter. It's Jeremy Shaw who is with me, John Hindhaugh, in the Haggerty Global Broadcast Centre. The curveball here, Jeremy, is how wet it still is out on the far side of the circuit, and those who possibly don't have to stop for fuel might need to stop for tyres.
Yeah, that is going to be a tough call, because we hadn't seen what it's like down the toe of the boot, and it clearly is quite wet down there. And of course, the tyres are cold now, no tyre warms, of course, once again
Let's see who comes in.
WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. So, but that extra lap, that we're going to do now under this caution period, you might be able to stretch into the end. But what tyres do you want to be on? Because most of the track, it's going to be dry.
Leaders in. Mazda is in the pit lane. Harry Tincknell peels into the pit lane. He's followed in by Filipe Albuquerque and Kevin Magnussen. So the top three have come in, and Felipe Nasr, they're all in. They've all come in. Shea Adam.
Thank you for listening to me, prototype drivers. I love it when this happens. Okay, Harry Tincknell into the pit lane, puttering along on the pit lane speed limiter. That would be 60 kph for those of you at home. And guess who's up on the wall? Yep, that would be the pink helmet, Ollie Jarvis, taking over the Mazda with he and Harry shared a week ago with Jonathan Bomarito to get the race win. Harry got to take to the checker. Well, this time it's turnabout fair play, and it is Ollie's turn to have a go. In the number 10, Konica Minolta Acura. That's also in the pit lane.
Change of position in the pit, Shea, as out goes the 31, Felipe Nasr. The Whelen Engineering car, they needed very little fuel. We highlighted this earlier on. They'd only been in 2 or 3 laps ago, and that is a change of effective lead at the front of the field. Whelen Engineering Cadillac will be, when we go back to green, the lead car, and behind, I think that's Filipe Albuquerque, is it, who got out second, or is that, in fact, that might be Stephen Thomas in the Win Autosport car, who came in as well. But that was, Jeremy, we sort of expected that, because we knew that some of those cars were only going to take a very small amount of fuel. I can't believe they got 4 tyres changed in that time, though, in that number 31.
Really interesting. It's going to be tough for these guys when they get down to the toe of the boot when we go back to green. It's still quite wet on the down there. There's still some spots of rain on the camera at the carousel, entrance of the carousel turn as well. So it's going to be really dicey out there, I can tell you. Interestingly, in LMP2, the number 52 car did not come in. Number 8 and 11 did. In LMP3, the number 36 and 54 cars came in, and I think they were the only 2 out of the 6 LMP3 cars that came onto the pit lane. No, wait a minute, there's another one. Yeah, no, that's right. I think just the 2 cars were in LMP3. So very, very interesting. And once again, the weather's just almost exactly as it was this morning. Just the tip of the toe of the boot is wet. But to tell you what, it's very wet down there. It's going to be really, really sketchy when the green flag comes out.
So, Jeremy Shaw, team manager, did you tell, if your driver asked for wets, did you tell him yes, you can have wets, or did you say no, we haven't got time to change all 4, we're going to splash you back to the top and then just fire you out back into it?
Sorry, chum, you've got to live with it. Don't crash the car.
I never want to drive for your team, I tell you, that looks tricky out there. Lots of bodywork down behind the pit lane, Shea Adam, for the number 60 Acura, the Auto Nation and Sirius XM MSR car.
The nose and the tail on the 60. It was the last car back off the pit lane for Dane Cameron, and the nose that they've taken off, even though there was a bit of rain out there on the track, it's got some rubber marks on it as if it's had some love. Now, could this be the sort of situation that we've seen at Toyota at Le Mans over the years, where every stop that they came in, they would change the nose, and sometimes they would change the tail, which made the car very much more clean than it should have been at the end of the race, in my opinion. But in that situation, they were able to change little aerodynamic devices on the nose with each stop to make it a better handling car for their driver. The prototype pit stops have finished. The GT pit stops are now open.
Just before we go to that, Shea, I wonder if, Jeremy was speculating about the contact that the 60 had at the first lap for Meyer Shank Racing. They haven't had a chance, whilst they were still in the fight, to be able to do that. They may have reckoned that, okay, we're going to be at the back anyway. I'd rather have a car that was fast. We're still on the lead lap. Give Dane Cameron something he can fight with. Give him the tools for the job.
For sure. And don't you want your best driver to have all of his best cards in his hand for the final round of this poker match?
Now, have we already had somebody with trouble on these formation laps? The sun dropping very low. The Mazda, I think, the 55 Mazda going round at turn 8. That was Ollie Jarvis coming into turn 8, turned in and just touched the curb on the right-hand side, and that's very wet indeed. Now, did he get stuck in the gravel? No, he's on the grass. Tell you what, he's still on slicks. They had to change because they had to change driver. And Shea Adam has news about the tyre choices in the pit lane. Shea?
Slick tires from those prototype stops. I just got confirmation from Ricky Taylor that they stayed on slicks, and pretty much everybody else up and down the pit lane that he could see did exactly the same. So brave drivers out there right now.
Final wave by happening now. Oh, I just wonder how close the Mustang sampling machine must have been to being able to go at the end, because they'd literally only been out for a single lap. But of course, oh no, Tristan was in the car. So it will restart after this lap, the final wave by happening now, so we might get one more lap. It's going to restart with about 36 minutes to go, maybe a little less there, maybe a little more than that, excuse me, and it will be Felipe Nasr for Whelen Engineering, the 31 Cadillac, that will start at the front of the field with Philippe Albuquerque in the number 10, Konica Minolta Acura, the only car I think that's held its same position after that at the top of the field. Then Mustang sampling up to third after the pit stops. Fourth position for the 01, Renger van der Zande now installed. Ollie Jarvis from the lead to fifth position in the Mazda, but still in fifth, just ahead of Dane Cameron. LMP2, it's Mikkel Jensen who'll restart for 52. Matheson Motorsport, PR1 Matheson. Tom Milner leads for the Corvette, that's the number 4. Felipe Fraga for Riley after their stops, the number 74. And it will be one more lap around. And in GT Daytona, Vasser Sullivan, I don't think any of the GTD stopped here, did they? Certainly not at the front of the field.
None of the GTDs stopped. The first time around, Turner did put Bill Auberlen in the car. The bad news for them is that the Grasser Lamborghini is back out circulating, so their gap is non-negotiable anymore, if you ask me. But GTLM, Matt Campbell did come in. He owed us a stop anyway. It was fuel and tires for the WeatherTech Porsche.
Rainbow over turn 5 as the 52 wins sponsored LMP is dropping. We're doing the class split, of course. I thought there was a problem there, but we're getting the DPIs to the front of the field. So, Jeremy, how do you like these apples then? We're going to get down to about, as I said, 36 minutes. You're on slick tyres on a track for about a third at least of the track. In cars, certainly at the front of the field, they can probably do 37 minutes of green flag racing, and we've been rolling now for, if you count all the formation laps, considerably more than that. They're going to be counting litres again, aren't they?
They are. They absolutely are. And I think the number 01 and 60 came back onto pit lane on this last lap, didn't they? So perhaps just to top off with fuel,
correct,
or change tires, I don't know. Perhaps just fuel, perhaps. Yeah, it is going to be awfully tight. The good news is, because it's very slippery, particularly at turn 7, but I think perhaps also 6 as well, and possibly even the exit of the carousel, that is going to help their fuel consumption. But it's still going to be very, very tight for the DPI cars to get to the end on this tank. But we're 37 minutes remaining now.
Yeah.
Another minute or so before they get back. It's going to be super, super tight.
It might be good for their fuel consumption, that wet weather and the slick surface. It's not going to be good for the nerves of everybody back on the pit boxes. Tell you that now. The safety car lights are out. and Shea reports it was just splashes of fuel for both of those cars. That's the 01 Cadillac from Chip Ganassi and the 60 Dane Cameron, new front end, new rear end on that Acura DPI from Meyer Shank Racing with Curb Agajanian. Alrighty. We sold you a receipt, but you've only going to use the end of it for this last 36.5 minutes or thereabouts. RS2, IMSA Radio, XM202, and in sound and vision for those of you outside the US on IMSARadio.com and the live video tab. When does Felipe Nasr go? Answer, as he was coming out of turn number 10. He's jumped early. That's caught one or two people out further down the line. It will be a slightly fractured restart as the WeatherTech 240 at the Glen becomes the WeatherTech 36 down towards turn number 1. Lots of weaving back and forth, trying to either clean tyres up or get some heat into them. Immediate move down the inside for Stephen Thomas, who was looking to make up positions and get somewhere near the back of Mikkel Jensen, who was a little further up the line. And we have a penalty further down the field. We'll get to that in a moment because it's not affecting what's going on at the front, but it is still at the front of the field Felipe Nasr that leads. Shea Adam.
I've just noticed that Tristan Nunez has not yet been in that 11 Win Autosport LMP2 machine. Jeremy's saying yes, he has full course caution is back out though. John, I'll let you cover that first.
Yeah, Tristan was in earlier on in that car. I'm pretty certain of that.
Is that Lexus bodywork?
There is some Lexus bodywork that has been detached from the rest of its car. We'll get back to the Nunez situation in a wee moment. But I've got him, certainly got him listed on my timing screen here. We are back to full course yellow, but this will be a quick yellow. It was at the restart. I said it was a bit fractured. The two, oh no, that was way further back than the Lexus, unless it came off and then got picked up. Yeah, all right. The Vassar Sullivan Lexus ran in to the back. That must have been the second of the cars into the car barn Audi. Then, yeah, maybe. Or maybe, oh no, hang on, there's a slow-moving Lamborghini. I wonder if it was the Lamborghini that it ran into. No, Lamborghini's behind it. So it must have been the car barn Audi that it ran into, and it's taken off the left-hand front bodywork on that car. Now, it's fallen off the track, but there's debris on the circuit, so this will be a very quick yellow. Now, that was the 14 of Jack Hawksworth.
For the race leader, Felipe Nasr in particular, who's leading this race in number 31 car, that extra lap of yellow is going to be, I think, probably crucial to perhaps even all of these DPI cars getting to the end from here without requiring another splash.
This will be what IMSA calls a short yellow, so there will be no procedure. They'll just wait for the train of cars to get by, and then one of the safety vehicles will hustle round, pick up that piece of bodywork, and then clear off back to one of their stations. And in fact, we've got one of the Porsche Cayenne AMR safety cars on the track at the moment, allowing the field to go by. That is on the back straight, heading towards the inner loop. Well, there's going to be one more after this at the very least, I would say. So this is going to take us down to half an hour, Jeremy, and maybe some sighs of relief in the DPI end of the pit lane here, because I reckon we'll have at least one more lap of yellow, and that'll give them another 2 minutes or so at the end of this lap. I reckon we'll be down to half an hour, 30 minutes.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened to number one Lamborghini, Paul Miller Racing Lamborghini. Brian Sellers lost 1, 2, 3 positions on that restart lap. So
she's now got the story, I think. Jeremy, go ahead.
Brian actually gained a position on the restart and then got caught behind an LMP3 car that was at, quote, half throttle going up through the S's. He's not very happy on the radio right now.
Okay. Them's the brakes. Although they must have caught up because it was a split start. quite a significant amount of body.
Actually, there were certainly cars out of position at the restart. They hadn't completed the stint, and that's because there were a few cars that came into the pits.
Correct.
Right before we went back to green, including the number 8, I think the number 36 car too, and number 79 came in a little bit later than everybody else.
That's the Tower Motorsport car, being the 8 Gabby Aubrey. He is on his outlap now. So that's an interesting one. And Matt Campbell in the 79. That's the WeatherTech Racing Porsche. Elements of diffraction, light diffraction in the sky. So rainbow still out there at the moment. Who will find the pot of gold at the end of the next half hour at the front of the field and through the classes? Prototype class split going on again to try and clean up the restart. So anyone who's fallen back behind the GT cars will have to hustle through. That means we're going to get, as I said, at least one more at the end of this one, which finishes now. It means we're going to have about 28 minutes to go at the end of this. It all gets better all the time. Drivers in the DPI's been called. You can go up the fuel map now. You'll be fine. Fine. You'll be fine. I still think somebody's going to run out of fuel here. I really do. They're all going to be pushing. There's a great opportunity to get this very, very wrong indeed, both on the fuel, on the pace, and of course in the slippery conditions. Remember our Porsche keys to the race: patience in traffic, but be decisive when you can. Well, now all of that goes out the window. What have you got left? Open up that fast draw, get it out, throw it at the track. Precious few mistakes in the pits, I have to say, today. So that hasn't really been an issue. And mistakes-wise, what this has done, of course, these last couple of cautions, it has brought the number 60 Meyershank Racing Acura right back into it. That was the car that lost all the time at the start of the race, spun around in turn 1 after contact. A new front and rear bodywork section for that car at the last pit stop, and now of course it's back on the end, Jeremy, of the DPI train. So if that has cured whatever imbalance or performance disadvantage that car had, did Cameron has got half a chance here. Yes, he's got to pass cars, but he's in a much better position than they were before rain stop play.
Yeah, and the DPR cars are nose to tail at the front. The top 6 cars: 31, 10, 5, 55, 01, and 60. So it's going to be a dogfight here, and they're still going to contend with that very, very slick track down at turn 7. That's going to make things very, very dicey in the braking area. As soon as they get over the crest of the hill towards 8, the track appears to be in pretty good shape, but down at the bottom there, in that dip, it's decidedly not. It's going to be very, very slippery. But the lights are out now on the Cadillac safety car.
Let's just wrap up a little bit. There was, we believe now, no contact with that Lexus and anything else. It was the gaffer tape bit of bodywork from earlier on in the race, so probably just the aero wash that took it off. But thank you, Alan Prosser, for that. Ian McCarthy, eagle-eyed, spotted a prototype spun and got hit under the yellow. Spotted that on the aerial shot. And Chris Smith saying, as re the Lexus, when they slapped the second amount of tape on, they didn't look convinced that it'd make that much of a difference. All right, reset, ready to go. Yes, we are. It's the WeatherTech 28 now. Green flag, spot on 28 minutes here at the Glen. And Felipe Nasr does it again. Side-by-side action. Here comes Tristan Vautier, straight down the inside of Philippe Albuquerque. Cadillacs first and second. Vautier and the 31 ahead of him. They were the guys who were in the best shape, and they've made the best of the delay and the restart. But here comes the Acura, jinx to the left-hand side. That's going to be the outside into the right-hander at the inner loop. Here comes Ollie Jarvis as well. He's had a good restart. Sitting now right in behind. We've seen this before through this race with the 55 Mazda staring at the back of the number 10 Acura.
Good job.
Now comes the tricky bit. Yes, a little bit of a dry line, but if you're off that dry line, it's going to be treacherous searching for grip. Ollie Jarvis goes high, wide, and very handsome indeed through the toe of the boot and gets his Mazda's nose ahead, but he's on the wrong track. He's wrong side of the track. He's on the wet side of the track. Down the inside, here comes Renger van der Zande. 3 cars from 3 different manufacturers battling for position. And that position is the 3rd step of the podium. Magnificent driving by all of those quality drivers, and it's van der Zande who's made up the position and goes up into 4th. Brilliant stuff, Jeremy, from that trio.
Yeah, nice try from Ollie Jarvis. It didn't work out there because the Cadillac was able to get a jump off the corner, and then K-Mag puts it down the inside. So great pass there, and this has been a really good restart for the V8 Cadillacs.
It's van der Zande, of course, who's taken over that car. K-Mag in it from the start, and Renger's been waiting a long time to get his chance. He hasn't waited very long to make his mark on the race up over the top of the hill and down the back straight once again. For a moment, it looked like Ollie Jarvis was going to be able to go round the outside and take 3rd. He ends up in 5th position at the end of that first restart lap. It was a very bold opportunity for the Mazda driver. Couldn't make it stick, and it's cost him 4th place at the moment. Down to 25.5 minutes to go. Meantime, Felipe Nasr is good. Hey guys, fight as much as you want behind me. Here comes the side-by-side pass again. Oh, and van der Zande's gone through. Van der Zande's got past the Acura, so now it's Cadillac 1st, 2nd and 3rd, 31, 5 and 0-1. So the Cadillacs coming good at the end of this race here. Everyone else fighting for the scraps, Jeremy Shaw, from the GM table.
Yeah, and van der Zande, he's the guy to watch, isn't he? He's absolutely flying in that 0-1 car. This car, the number 0-1, has set the fastest lap in all the races except for 1 so far this season. And the other race, it was the number 31 car. Actually, one of the races, 31 and 0-1, tied the fastest lap of the race.
Yeah, that's right. Under 25 minutes. Still a little bit of sheen on the surface of the track.
That by van der Zande.
Yeah, he is in the groove immediately. Never ceases to amaze me, Jeremy, how these racing drivers... You know, there's Renger, been sitting around, he's not been in the car, then they've had the delay, then he comes out, gets 2 slow formation laps, and he's on it immediately. It's literally like lighting a very, very short blue touch paper and waiting for the firework to go off. Brilliant stuff.
Incredible. In LMP2, by the way, Mikkel Jensen's got a huge lead now because both the number 8 and the number 11 have made pit stops, so they've fallen right to the back of that little train in LMP2. In LMP3, Felipe Fraga leads by about a 2nd over Dylan Murray. Then Rasmus Lind in 3rd. Colin Brown's shuttled down to 4th position, or is in 4th position, because he did pit during the caution period. And Oliver Askew is at the back of that train.
There was a very big incident on the restart at the toe of the boot, and I mean, thanks to Steve for sending that across to me. There was an IMSA official watching that as well. A big slide sideways by the Win Autosport number 11 car, and that was hit very hard indeed by one of the following prototypes. I think that was the Andretti car from the phone footage that I've just been sent here at the Hagerty Global Broadcast Centre. Steve, thanks, I'll retweet that and make sure everybody else gets a good look at it so that they can see that as well. Great spot from one of the spectators trackside here at the Glen.
GTD as well. Jack Hawksworth, he went from the 3rd at the restart into the lead ahead of his teammate in second place now. Zach Veach is in second, and the Aston Martin, still looking for yet another podium finish, is currently running third with Ross Gunn just ahead of Jeff Westphal in the Audi, and then Mario Farnbacher in the Compass Racing Acura as well. That train of cars battling pretty much the second place, because Jack Hawksworth, he's got about a second or so lead over his teammate.
Yeah, he's done the best out of the GTD drivers after that little schmozzle that was going on the restart. As I said, it was untidy coming through 10. Managed to avoid contact in an extraordinary scenario here, and in the way Watkins Glen International looks at the moment is almost beyond description. You've got parts of the circuit where it looks like late night, it's so dark, and sunshine in others, albeit low sunshine. What is it, coming on to 8:30 now here at the Glen, and still 21 minutes to go. We've got a yellow flag for another spinner. It's the third place car in prototype LMP 3, and that was the yes, it was the 38. It was Rasmus Lind. I was talking myself out of that, but Rasmus is going to have to come into the pits, I think, here. Had a big spin and he's got damage to the right rear. Did he jump or was he pushed? He was pushed, I think, by Colin Brown. Yes, he was. Contact with the 54. Colin coming up behind. Stout defence into turn 9 from Rasmus. Flat spotted tyres and a couple of new Michelins going on down there in the pit lane, at least on the left hand side, as they retighten the right front. Fairly leisurely stop. They've dropped that car down. We'll see if anything comes of that. Under review, I can see now from race control. 20 minutes to go. Leader is still Felipe Nasr by 1.5 seconds from Renger van der Zande. Almost, Jeremy, to the 1,000th, those cars lapping at the same time last time around. My goodness, they're evenly matched, those front two Cadillacs.
Yeah, they certainly are, and they felt a little bit aggrieved last 1 week ago, less than 1 week ago, by the time of that full course caution, particularly the extended slight extension in yellow that allowed some of the other cars, they felt, a little bit easier to get to the finish without needing another splash of fuel. But now the boot is on the other foot and they are out in front of this race. Meanwhile, in LMP3, Felipe Fraga for the last 2 laps has just reset the fastest lap of the race in LMP3 in that championship leading Riley Motorsport car number 74.
Yeah, he's got some competition from their team car, the number 91, with Dylan Murray behind the wheel. That car's fastest lap last time around was fractions of a second, the blink of an eye slower last time around than Felipe Fraga. Then Core Autosport with Colin Brown setting magenta times, meaning he's the quickest on the circuit last time around, and the whole of our Alcamel timing screen lighting up with greens and magenta times and sector times, as we are seeing extraordinary lengths being taken by these drivers. They are pushing, Jeremy, very hard indeed, and Dylan Murray in the 91, the wins car, has the sniff of something here. He's chasing down Felipe Fraga, or at least attempting to. Down into the turn 8 again. Under 18 minutes to go. Blue and purple of the 74, blue and red of the 74, excuse me, coming round to complete the lap. And then the wins car sitting in behind. That's the battle for the lead in LMP3. Slightly further round the track. Felipe Fraga is in the thick of traffic as he is trying to hold on to a scant 1 second lead. The two Corvettes having it their own way in GT Le Mans. 3, Antonio Garcia from 4, Tommy Milner. They come across the line now. And in GTD, Jack Hawksworth holds about a second-and-a-half lead over his teammate, the 14 and the 12, the two bright yellow Lexus. Those are your leaders at the moment. But right there, Ross Gunn in the Heart of Racing team, in the Aston Martin, and he's only got half a second on Jeff Westphal in the dark grey and green car band with Peregrine Audi. And then there's a big gap back to Mario Farnbacher for Compass Racing. In fact, check that, because that car must have just pulled in the pits. It's Daniel Morad now who's gone up into 5th position for Allegra Motorsports, and I think he's just put the fastest lap of the race in as well. He has in GT Daytona, 1:46. Shea Adam, the number 79 WeatherTech car, dropping away now. I think they had dropped off the lead lap in class, but at least they were up with the Corvettes, but not anymore. Why not?
Matt Campbell is currently 36 seconds behind the lead Corvettes. He was right there on the restart, but when they came in and did their pit stop before we went back to green, you would think they would have learned after last week. Improperly manned fire bottle over the wall, meaning that they did not have somebody on the fire extinguisher, so they had to come and serve a drive-through penalty. Campbell is currently fighting back, trying to catch the Corvettes, but with 16 minutes to go, doesn't look likely.
Meantime, the battle for 3rd position overall is in GT traffic, in GT Daytona traffic, between the GT Daytona leaders. The two Lexus go through turn 8 and up towards turn 9. Quite a steep climb there. You don't really realise it until you have to walk up it. And Portier holds 3rd position at the moment. But the Konica Minolta Acura, under control of Felipe Albuquerque, was right with him in that traffic. But as soon as the Cadillacs get clear air, Jeremy, they clear off. Impressive the way they're punching out of the medium and medium quick corners.
Yeah, it really is, isn't it? And yeah, they're certainly looking good now. We've got 15 minutes remaining in this race. 15 minutes, what can happen in 15 minutes? They're going to be lapping all the GTD field once again, I think, before the end of this race. And as we've seen already, getting past black traffic here, if you catch it in the wrong place, it can be very, very costly.
Ollie Jarvis right with Dane Cameron, battling for points in 5th and 6th position. That's the 6-0. The purple and black Mershank Racing Acura, the mainly white Mazda, in the hands of Oliver Jarvis, sitting in behind it just by about a 10th. Really important for them to get as many points as they can. The car that they're battling for the championship is 2 positions and round about 3 seconds up the road. That's number 10 of Felipe Albuquerque, and he is battling to try and get on the podium. Just a moment or two ago, down at the toe of the boot, it looked as though Albuquerque had got his nose ahead at turn 7, but a bit of hip and shoulder from Tristan Vautier just ushered the Konica Minolta Acura slightly wide, and Albuquerque had to back out of it, lost a bit of momentum. He's trying to gain that back now. Headlights showing much brighter now as we've got a stunning sunset with the cloud cover here at Watkins Glen. Down the front straight, the headlights glowing very brightly with 13.5 minutes to go. RS2 IMSA Radio, no blocks, no brakes for all of the IMSA content around the world and around the track, and of course in the US on XM202 this weekend, as well as in sound and vision if you're outside the US. Good to have your company. What is it back in the UK? Oh, coming up to 20 minutes before 2 in the morning on a Friday night into a Saturday morning. Well, this has been worth staying up for, I hope you'll agree. Worth waiting for that restart. And live video on IMSARadio.com as well. Still damp around the far side of the circuit, Jeremy. Mistakes could easily be made here.
Absolutely right. Number 52 car, by the way, the leader in LMP2 was shown as having a splash of fuel last time, or coming into the pits at least last time around. And Colin Brown now resets the fastest lap of the race in LMP3 as he tries to track down Dylan Murray for second place. Number 54 car of Colin Brown is third at the moment. Dylan Murray is second. Felipe Fraga still leads. It's actually stretched out to 2.4 seconds over Fraga with, still 12 minutes to go.
Yeah, and with Colin Brown just another 3.5 seconds further back. Haven't seen share any resolution to that contact between Colin Brown and go ahead.
Yeah, no, race control did say NFA on that.
All right, thank you very much. That's why I asked you, as I hadn't noticed that myself. Where is the challenge going to come from Felipe Nasr, who leads the race? Nasr 33.1 last time, 32.7 for Renger van der Zande. Traffic playing its part. The leader with a bit of clear air in front of him as he comes to turn number 8. Can't see the same for the number 55 Mazda because he's right up under the rear wing of Dane Cameron. Dane Cameron knows that Mazda program now with Acura and Maishank Racing. And Ollie Jarvis is right there, heading towards a beautiful sunset over the top of turn 9. Now the short run through the curved catch fencing that borders both sides of the track there, almost like running down through a cloche, huge cloche, where you'd be growing mighty tomatoes under that, wouldn't you? 10.5 to go across the line, down to turn 1. The subtle golden colours of the fading evening sun bathing Watkins Glen in a glorious light for the last 10 minutes of the WeatherTech 240. Another fastest lap in LMP2 from Tristan Nunes for Win Autosport. As he tries to gain time back, he's only 6 seconds away from the 2 Corvettes, but he's got more time to make up to Gabby Aubrey. I think time is running out for him. At the front of the field, though, time can't go quick enough, I would thought, for Felipe Nasr. It's like, I mean, it is like watching 2 heavyweights in the closing stages of a world title fight, Jeremy Shaw. It's punch and counter punch. I'm not sure how much either of these 2 have got left. They're giving absolutely everything at the front of the DPI field.
Yeah, they are, and in GTD as well. The 2 Lexus, they're not separated by very much. And in third position, Ross Gunny is right there with the Aston Martin, and Jeff Westphal right behind him also, and Daniel Morad, who has set the fastest lap of the race. We talked about that a few moments ago. I think Shane mentioned that. Those cars are absolutely nose to tail for second, third, fourth, and fifth. And Hawkins, his lead is less than a second, so it's super tight there. Ditto in LMP3. Colin Brown is now just a couple of seconds behind the second place car, which is in turn only about a second behind the leader. So the top 3 cars, number 74, 91 and 54, separated by only just over 2 or 3 seconds.
Right, better take a big deep breath now, because anything could happen. And some issues coming up at this time of the race, I always feel, is very, very cruel. Shea Adam with news of a car that's a couple of cars, I think, that aren't going to take the checkered flag. What do you have, Shea?
Turner Motorsports is parking in the 96. They're not going to be able to pass Misha Goikhberg in the 19 GRT Lamborghini, so they're not going to risk the wall. The car also behind the wall, the number 1 Paul Miller Racing Lamborghini, no fuel pressure, plenty of fuel in the tank for Brian Sellers. They too have gone behind the wall. And Dom Cicero has now gone behind the wall in the 84 Dawson Racing LMP3 car. It's been a very eventful day for them as well. And I'm still waiting for the update on the 76 Compass Acura. They had an issue that brought Mario into the pit lane and he lost 2 laps.
So did you say that was low fuel pressure for Brian Sellers in the number 1, but plenty of fuel in the tank, yes? Is that what you said?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Just for those people who like to jot this down. Michelin PRT at the end of this checkered flag ends the competition. but only starts our conversation. Hashtag Michelin PRT at IMSA Radio, please. And we'll deal with that in as quick a time as we can, particularly for those of you over in Europe, for whom time, I understand, is ticking on.
In DPI ranks, they set their fastest laps of the race last time around. Both the Acuras actually. Albuquerque at a 31.50 and Cameron at a 32.06. Both trying to hold. Well, one of them trying to find a position. Number 5 chasing Albuquerque's number 10. Excuse me. Albuquerque under pressure from Tristan Vautier, and then Cameron under pressure from Oliver Jarvis in the Mazda.
Jeremy Shaw alongside Shea Adam and me, John Hindhaugh. Good to have your company. I bet you are pleased you stayed tuned in for this one. This GT Daytona battle goes across the line to Lexus, then the Heart of Racing Aston Martin. Right in behind there, the Audi R8. Allegra Motorsports trying to get on the end. Daniel Morad's been setting some quick laps, and he's nearly there. He's about a second away. Mark Miller, 6th position at the moment from Gradient Racing. Till Bechtelsheimer hadn't driven any dry laps until earlier on in this race. Made a good show of things. Qualified in 4th position. So the damaged number 14, Jack Hawksworth, maybe losing a little bit of aerodynamic efficiency on the front left of that car. Another fastest lap of the LMP2 ranks for Tristan Nunez. He's now only 11 seconds behind Gabby Aubrey. I said I thought time might run out, but he's taken 2.3 seconds away from the Tower Motorsport car in 2nd position there, Jeremy. Nobody tell Tristan Nunez there's not enough time left. He's going to give that one a good go.
He certainly is, and it's a good lap time at this stage in the proceedings, no question. The race leaders 1:33.4 last time around for our race leader Felipe Nasr. He's got a gap of just about over a second over Marengo van der Zande in the Cadillac Chip Ganassi Racing entry. So 2 Cadillacs out front. Albuquerque in 3rd place. In 3rd place, he's got past Tristan Vautier.
Yes, absolutely right. Albuquerque has got through. We've been keeping our eye on this GT Daytona battle. And change for 3rd place, 3rd step on the podium. Acura and the championship leading car. That's bad news for Ollie Jarvis. He's still only a second away from Dane Cameron and the Mazda Motorsports Multimatic team. They will be desperate to get Ollie past that Dane Cameron driven Acura right ahead of them. There goes the 2nd place, Marengo van der Zande. 2.7 seconds now behind Felipe Nasr. Is the pendulum swinging towards Whelen Engineering and the Accent Express team? Another fastest lap of the race in LMP2 from Tristan Nunez in the Win Autosport number 11. That's the car I reckon that got nailed after a spin on the restart. And this is Tristan Nunez trying to make up for that. Now cuts that lead to 8.3 seconds that Gabby Aubrey has in 2nd. And that's another, well, it was a 1:36.1 from Aubrey, a 1:33.5 from Nunez. Is Aubrey fuel saving? What is going on here? That literally at every split, that is coming down, and there'll be at least a couple of laps, Jeremy. That is going to be very tight indeed for 2nd in LMP2. Nobody's going to catch Mikkel Jensen, but 2nd is still on the table.
Yeah, I think so, and that was a second half quicker than the leaders on the last lap as well for Tristan Nunez in that Win Autosport car number 11, the LMP2 car.
Oh, this is extraordinary stuff. Those 2 cars have both been out of the pits for the same amount of time. So what is going on? With Gabby Aubrey, is he just pacing himself? He's in behind Colin Brown at the moment, which is an LMP3 car, and he's lapping at a 1:41. He cannot afford to stay behind Colin Brown. because his lead is now under 6 seconds. This is going to be very tight indeed. Meantime, at the front of the field, Tristan Vautier has caught Philippe Albuquerque again. And those two are barely half a second apart. That's for the third step on the overall podium. Front of the field, Felipe Nasr leads by 1.7 seconds. Oh my goodness me. Where do we look? It's another one.
About 3 seconds behind them, John. The Mazda Oliver Jarvis has finally found a way past past Dane Cameron.
Right, excellent. So Tristan, I think, lost the position a few laps ago when he came up behind the Andretti Autosport car over the top of the brow at 4. Just had to lift out. Magnificent opportunist manoeuvre from Felipe Albuquerque, and that's how he got that third place. Now, Ollie Jarvis is only 3 seconds behind Tristan Vautier. It's a lot to ask in 2 laps. Where is Felipe Nasr? He's just gone through. There'll be another lap after this one. I did not see the white flag. Shea Adam with a quick update, and another car that went behind the wall, but now we can tell you why, Shea, and it's a bizarre reason in this VP Racing Fuel Pit report.
Very strange. The team is baffled. It's a cut front right brake line on the 76 Compass Acura. They found some debris in the front of the car. They think that's what did it, and it was yellow and black.
Wow, okay. Now, I'm still not seeing the white flag notification. I think they crossed the line with just enough time to go through, and Ollie Jarvis is right on the back of Tristan Vautier. The leaders aren't too far apart either. The bright red car, you can see it in the gathering dusk here at the Glen, turn 8. It will be white flag this time around through turn 9. Here comes Renger van der Zande. Felipe Albuquerque has held off Tristan Vautier, but Vautier now has Ollie Jarvis right on his tailpipes. 0.4 of a second. Here's the white flag. 4 seconds to go, so perfect timing. And IMSA right not to throw the white flag last time around. 3.4 miles for the win at the WeatherTech 240 at the Glen. 3.4 miles for 4th place and extra championship points for Ollie Jarvis in 5th position at the moment, right in behind Tristan Vautier. We'll try and keep an eye on that as well. They're heading up through the S's, the leaders already in through the inner loop, about halfway round. Through the outer loop now, down through the chute towards the downhill braking area at turn number 6. Nasr looks cool, calm and collected. The car's not moving around, but fastest lap of the race for the Cadillac Chip Ganassi for that car, put in last time around by Renger van der Zande. It's brought him almost tantalisingly close, Jeremy, to striking distance, but there's only a couple of more big braking distances, and I think Felipe Nasr has judged this to perfection.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Tristan Nunes has just got past Gabriel Aubry, and they've also overtaken the LMP3 leaders, who pretty much nose to tail.
That is brilliant stuff. Brilliant stuff. Out of the final corner then, after a red flag stoppage for lightning. It's an electric finish for Felipe Nasr and Whelen Engineering. The Cadillac number 31 wins. Pipo Derani started the car. Nasr finishes it. Van der Zande brings home Chip Ganassi to the podium in 2nd. Then it was Felipe Albuquerque for the championship leading Acura, the Konica Minolta car from Vautier, just holding on from Ollie Jarvis at the end. Mazda Motorsport will slip slightly further behind the Acura number 10. In LMP2, Mikkel Jensen wins by about 20 seconds. Tristan Nunes, what a drive after the restart. Looked like he had a half spin at the toe of the boot and got absolutely nailed by an LMP3 car. and he's fought back.
3, John.
Say again?
Top 3 in LMP3, nose to tail, coming to the final corner.
Oh yes, absolutely, and it will be Fraga, but only just from Dylan Murray. The 2 Riley Motorsports cars, and there's Colin Brown coming through as well. And the top 3 separated by 0.8 of a second. That's the podium, separated by 0.8 of a second in LMP3. The 2 Corvettes finished 3 from 4. With Matt Campbell 55.5 seconds further back after that drive-through for the infraction of the fire bottle. Jack Hawksworth leads on a 1-2 for Vasser Sullivan. And the Lexus RCF GT3s with Ross Gunn. I mean, again, only a second apart, the top 3, with Westphal only another 3/10 back. Another podium for Harter Racing Team. Brilliant stuff for them. What consistency.
Absolutely. They led the WeatherTech Sprint Cup coming into this weekend. Lexus finished in second for Frankie Montecalvo, who were using the 3rd place car. So Roman DeAndres and Ross Gunn unofficially will hang on to the lead in the WeatherTech Sprint Cup in GTD. But what a battle that was. And boy, I tell you, it's about time that Vasser Sullivan Lexus team came home with a victory. They've been knocking on the door now so many times. Now, this is the car that won the championship last season in the WeatherTech Sprint Cup, but they've had everything that possibly could go wrong did towards the end of last year, even the beginning of this year as well. But finally now, perhaps that team has turned the corner, not only with the victory for Jack Hawksworth and Aaron Tielitz, but a second place also for Zach Veach and Frankie Montecalvo.
Well, another phew is about right, Jeremy. Another race that has delivered. I thought we would have action, excitement and drama. We had it. We also had a pause in the middle, which allowed us to hear from Ollie Jarvis, and thank you to him for his time earlier on in the week. And then when we came back, it was the archetypal dash for cash, or in this case dash 4 points. Whelen Engineering, Action Express, the number 31 car, Nasser and Durrani, Jeremy, back in victory lane. It seems like it's been a little while.
It does, doesn't it? And it has. They've worked super hard for this. They've been close so many times. They've had sort of potential victories snatched away. But finally, the first win of the season. They've had 2 pole positions. They're on pole position for the opening race at Daytona, pole position at Sebring as well. But just little things that got in their way. They've had a couple of second places, and finally that first win of the year for car number 31.
349 days since the bright red number 31 Whelen Engineering Cadillac pulled into a victory lane. It was the Sebring sprint race, and they are back in there again. They've claimed the VP Racing Fuel checkered flag, and they win the WeatherTech 240. Important championship points, but much more important, I'm sure, for them, that they're back to winning ways. Pipo Derani with his teammate Felipe Nasser on the side pod of the car, taking the plaudits.
Come on! Come on! Woo!
That is Pipo Derani that you can hear in the background and on the public address system. We are going to hand the PA here at Watkins Glen over in a moment or two. We'll have post-race tech, Michelin post-race tech on RS2, IMSA Radio and XM Series 202. Thank you very much to Tyler Norling and all of the IMSA staff at the track for making sure all of our technicals were working. Excellent work by our camera operators and our flag marshals in the most difficult and dangerous, potentially, of situations. Also, of course, to our technical teams away from the track at North Carolina, Charlotte, for the colleagues at NASCAR TV, without whom we cannot see the far sides of the tracks. Brilliant stuff from them. And also across and up in London to Rob, who made sure that IMSA Radio was going to the world. And we're going to take a deep breath. The podium celebrations are next from Watkins Glen International. Join us in a couple of weeks' time when we will have the North East Grand Prix, 16th and the 17th of July. It's a GT extravaganza with the GT categories of the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship and the Michelin Pilot Challenge taking centre stage at the Bullring. 1.5 miles of Lime Rock Park. For all your ticket details, go to limerock.com. We'll be back in a moment with Michelin Post Race Tech.